July 21st, Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors meeting. Will you please join me in the flag salute? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Ms. Cunha, will you please read the public participation procedures for the day?
In order to protect the public health and safety of our Tuolumne County citizens, this Board of Supervisors meeting will be physically closed to the public. During the board meeting, citizens who wish to comment should be prepared to use or call in online at 209-533-6581 to queue for verbal public comment. Public comment will be opened and closed individually for each agenda item listed below. If you wish to comment on a specific item, please call in when the board clerk has read the item. The chair will ask if there are any comments from the public at that time, and your call will be taken in order that it is received. The public comment time limit on each item is set for 3 minutes per speaker. The time limit does not apply to staff. Public access video and audio live streaming. Tuolumne County website. The public will not have access for public comments. This is available for audio and visual only. Access Tuolumne County or the Tuolumne County website. Public access audio is Zoom meeting. The public will not have access for public comments. This is available for listening only. Via computer or call in at 1-669-900-9128 with webinar ID 987-3738-5155. Important public notice. Under the Governor's Executive Order N-2520, this meeting will allow members of the Board of Supervisors to participate by teleconference. And under Order N-2920, accessibility requirements. If you need swift special assistance during the board meeting, please call 209-533-6581.
Thank you. And at this time, County Council, could you please, I know you've stated in the past, but restate for the public the policy on board members wearing masks?
Sure. So under the guidance issued by the state of California, if you're in a room where the public cannot physically access, which is the board chambers, and you can socially distance yourselves, you're not required to wear the mask.
Thank you. All right. At this time, oral communication. The public may speak on any item not on the printed agenda. No action may be taken by the board. Do we have anyone waiting for oral communication? Thank you. Please.
Thank you. This is Bruce Erickson, Certified Scientific Instruments. I wanted to make some comments about COVID testing in general. The week of June 22nd, our company drove a Penske truckload of equipment for a COVID lab in Michigan, and while we were there, we took a COVID test. We were negative. Later on, when we flew back on United, we found it very clean, safe, etc. But then when we came back, I ran into two people that I found to be sort of sketchy people, and I decided I'd take another COVID test. So I went on the process server logisticshealth.com website and spent about a half an hour signing up, and then I was given an appointment for July 12th, that's 6 days later. What I found out is that it's actually not a test site, it's a test collection site, and it gives you the impression it's a test site, but in fact it's not. And when you go to try and find out how long it's going to take to get your actual test results back, it's another week or 10 days and sometimes 2 weeks. So the overall time length is somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks from the time you sign up until the time you get your test back. So what I did was I went ahead and talked with one of my clients in Michigan and had his test kit overnighted out to me. Then I sent it back to them, and I got my results in 2 days instead of 2 weeks. That way I could actually have something that was useful. And so when we're lining up more people for contact tracing, et cetera, it's pretty useless just in terms of the math. Just say, well, if you're not going to find out your results for 2 or 3 weeks, what's the point of doing this tracing? And I think it's part of the theory that's going on with this whole issue of testing, and it's going to have an impact, I think, in terms of our school kids going back to school, because what we need to do is to be able to get our test results back in 2 or 3 days. And part of this problem is that even if they try and do more testing, there's simply not enough equipment out there to test now. And a lot of this equipment is backed up for months just in terms of setting up these test sites. So if you guys want to talk some more at some time, I'd like to give you some more information on that, but I think we need to set up a test center actually here in the county and do something that we can take care of ourselves with. The idea that this test collection site is sending stuff off to Quest, LabCorp, or UCSF just isn't getting it for us. So those are my comments. I'd like to help out. I've tried to give a PCR instrument to the county health people in the hospital. Evidently, nobody knows how to use them here, but we need to do something better than what we've done, because right now it's not reality, it's theater. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And Dr. Ortiz, maybe in your presentation you can address that, because I have gotten that question from a number of individuals. Thank you.
Already in the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Oral communication?
Good morning. Can you hear me? This is Lori Lehman calling.
Morning.
And I just wanted to say I live in a mixed neighborhood, residential and commercial, and we do have the jail here as well. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, there's a delay. Okay, so I recently discovered that in my neighborhood, the sheriff's department used to be here, but they moved to a new location. The delay is really weird. I recently discovered in my neighborhood across the street from my house that after our local sheriff's department left, they left behind a morgue. They built a freezer box in the room that used to contain surplus desks and computers. At any time during the day or night, they pull up in unmarked vehicles and unload dead bodies. When I asked the officer why no one informed those of us that live in this neighborhood about this, he said, "We were hoping no one would notice." I was wondering which of you knew about this, and I was also wondering, can you tell me if this will go away when the new jail is completed?
Okay, I don't know if we have any staff present that can answer any piece of that. Otherwise, we will check with the sheriff for a complete answer.
What's that?
That's,
Yeah, we'll see. We'll get in touch with the sheriff and get some information from him.
thank you. Any other public oral communication? All right. Seeing none, we'll move to staff reports. Are there any staff reports? I see none. Will the clerk please read our first 9 a.m. appointment? What did consent after?
Presentation and planning status update on the novel coronavirus, COVID-19.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Ms. Carrillo, Mr. Earhart. My name is Rebecca Espino, Health and Human Services Agency Director. Before I continue, I'd like to take this opportunity, and it's with great pleasure, to announce that Michelle Jaquetta has been promoted to the position of Public Health Director effective yesterday. Michelle has almost 20 years of experience working at public health. She has and continues to be a key member of our COVID response team. We look forward to her continued leadership, creativity, and her strong desire to serve this community. Today's presentation will once again focus on masking, the ever-changing testing capabilities, and your board will also hear from Corey Ellen, who will oversee the new Education and Compliance Division. Corey's energy and can-do attitude makes her the logical choice to oversee a program that is designed to support county businesses as they work very hard to comply with the, again, frequently changing rules. Without further ado, Dr. Ortiz.
Good morning. All right, so as usual, starting with some numbers comparing to the last time we presented numbers from July 6th, and at the time that we put this presentation together, the numbers we had available were July 19th. Of course, it's now a few days later. But on the 19th, Tuolumne County had 85 positive cases of residents, and as you can see, obviously, the nation and the state have had really significant increases in the number of cases and deaths. So this slide includes some numbers from our surrounding counties, which are very concerning. As we've mentioned, every time that we've presented to this board, we watch very closely what is happening in the Central Valley. Fresno, Stanislaus, and San Joaquin have incredibly high numbers. And I will point out that over the past couple of weeks, the Central Valley numbers are worse than the Bay Area and per capita worse than the Southern California area. So there are some really huge increases in the number of cases in the Central Valley and the impact that is having on its hospital, which is a region that we are a part of, that we participate in mutual aid with. So since we last spoke, there has been a new health officer order in alignment with the state that updates the permitted sectors, closing all bars, indoor and outdoor, and closing indoor dining in a few other sectors, which we'll get into later in this presentation. And we wanted to provide a few more details about masking since there seems to be a lot of confusion about this order that came out a little while ago, specifically about what the exemption is in the order and what those details are. So people exempt from wearing a face covering due to medical conditions who are employed in a job requiring regular contact with others should wear a non-restrictive alternative, such as a face shield with a drape, which is that. Notice that it has a drape. It's not just a face shield. So on the left here is the typical face shield that is normally worn in conjunction with a face covering or a respirator in a healthcare setting. There have been a lot of people who have thought that that was an acceptable substitute. It is not. And the image on the right is also not an acceptable substitute. So if you're unable to breathe with a cloth face covering, speak to your medical provider. Using a face shield with an apron or a drape, using a face shield without a drape or using a partial shield is inadequate. And if you fall into a vulnerable category, it's important that you continue to stay home. It's even more important now than before because we have significant amounts of community transmission. So people are much more vulnerable than they were months ago.
And Dr. Ortiz, sorry to interject, but I think that picture right there is worth 1,000 words because I've had a lot of people contact me with asthma, with issues, and if they could just see that, it's a great alternative to a face mask. So if that call line, when that call line goes live, if you guys do have to go out and educate servers or whatnot, that right there's a lot. It's surprising to us, but a lot of people have no idea about that option.
We have put that up on our public messaging, and we will continue to put that up. It's been a part of the business webinar discussions as well.
And Dr. Ortiz, I think you mentioned it, but I think it's very important that second bullet is equally as important as masking. If you fall into a vulnerable category, you should be staying home.
Yep, which is what we have been saying this whole time. We continue to reiterate its importance, and people should realize that with more community transmission in this location, they are more vulnerable than they were a few months ago. So please stay at home. As you all know, the number of cases have increased dramatically in the past several weeks. One of the data points that the state monitors is the case rate over 14 days. As of the 19th, our rate is on here in the low 90s. So on this graph, the 19th is, the point is at 85.96. As of the 20th, it was 91.69. So We have been very high, nearly at 100 a few days ago. We continue to be right at the edge of getting on that county monitoring list. Cases have been identified in all types of business sectors. They've been identified in many essential critical infrastructure sectors. We have been unable to identify the source in most cases. Community transmission has been identified in all parts of this county. And it is important that people stay in their household bubble as much as possible if they want to prevent transmission of this disease. We know that we have not been able to contact everybody. We know that we have not been told all of the information that we need to be able to contact people. So we ask that if people think that they have been exposed, to call the Public Health Department at 533-7440, and we can give people the correct information about the correct time to get tested, and we have the ability to refer people to the COVID clinic in the Adventist Health Hospital System, which is a drive-up testing here in Sonora. We also have the ability to prioritize tests for high-risk situations. As is standard for most disease reporting, all disease reporting, we only report information for county residents. Hospital capacity data is reported by the hospital and includes patients regardless of county residence. This is true across the state. Publicly available data can be found on the state website on the county data monitoring list. We monitor our hospital capacity every day, and we have not been reaching the trigger points for the county data monitoring list based on hospital capacity, which includes the number of available ICU beds and the number of available ventilators. Tuolumne County Public Health is continuing preparation for local medical surge and supporting medical surge in other counties in Region 4. So, testing, lots of updates. Since we last spoke, the California Department of Public Health has set up priority tiers so that people who are in need of testing are able to get those labs processed more quickly. So the top tier is people who are hospitalized, anybody who is a part of a public health investigation, or anybody who is a known contact of a confirmed laboratory case. All symptomatic patients fall into tier 2, which is still a high priority level, and that also includes the riskiest essential workers, so healthcare workers, first responders, congregate living, and corrections. Most other high-risk essential workers fall into tier 3, and then tier 4 is basically asymptomatic people who have no known exposure or surveillance work. Testing is available from local providers, as well as at Adventist Health Sonora and at the OptumServe state testing site in Angels Camp. Adventist Health Sonora has the lab capacity of doing a PCR test, but that is limited to medically urgent situations due to a nationwide shortage of reagents. All other PCR tests are done using send-out labs. But the Public Health Department has and continues to have the ability to prioritize tests for those higher risk individuals, whether it's because of their work environment or known exposures, and whether or not they have symptoms. So we recommend that if people have symptoms, that they contact their healthcare provider, because their healthcare provider is likely able to provide a test faster than the state testing site. You should not be waiting 3 weeks for getting in and then getting your test result. You should be contacting your healthcare provider. If you don't have a healthcare provider, you can contact the COVID-19 hotline, which is 536-5166, and that's through Adventist Health. You can also go to the website valleycovidhelp.com. That is a website that has been put together by the San Joaquin Valley Public Health Consortium in collaboration with all of the counties in that consortium, which includes Tuolumne County, that has basic information about how to safely self-isolate, self-quarantine, where to get testing, and what to do. So if you're symptomatic, call your healthcare provider, call the COVID hotline, or go to that website. If you are a known exposure, call the Public Health Department, and we can help prioritize your available tests. The state testing site in Angels Camp is open from 7 to 7, Tuesday through Saturday. Appointments are strongly encouraged. There is some limited walk-in capability. There are usually people who no-show every day, and those slots then become available for people who are walking up, but it's not guaranteed. So we do recommend that people make appointments ahead of time.
In Tuolumne County, at least 7,000 tests have been conducted as of last report, and as of last report, the testing rate is well over the 150 per 100,000 residents. We're at almost 400 tests per 100,000 residents, and that is because we have been conducting enormous contact tracing work and providing testing for these high-risk groups such as congregate living, skilled nursing facilities, correctional facilities. The Public Health Department has been doing a lot of work, getting a lot of people tested in a very quick turnaround.
Can you go back one slide real quick?
Yep.
Thank you. I'm good, Liza.
Okay. So, as we mentioned before, since we last presented to the Board of Supervisors, there have been some closures in permittable sectors. So all bars are closed both indoors and outdoors, and the following sectors can operate outdoors only. So restaurants, wineries, family entertainment centers, zoos, museums, and card rooms. That is because we're not on the monitoring list. If a county gets on the monitoring list, they also have to close indoor operations of hair salons, gyms, personal care services, places of worship, offices, and shopping malls. And if a county is on the monitoring list, they cannot open schools for in-person instruction. We are not currently on that monitoring list. We have had a rate as high as 97.42 last weekend. The threshold is if we get over 100 cases in 14 days per 100,000 population. So if we hit 53 cases in 14 days, we would get on that list if we are on there for 3 consecutive days. Gonna let Corey Allen talk to this slide.
Oh, thank you very much, Corey Allen. Madam Chair, members of the board, I represent today just the education and, excuse me?
Just because I'm getting questions before you get started, Dr. Ortiz, that's a 14-day average for 3 days.
It's the number of cases in the 14 days.
Okay, so it's total cases in 14 days.
Yep.
And what's our number?
So the population that the state uses is from the Department of Finance, so it's 52,351. So if we have 53 cases in 14 days, that will equal over 100 per 100,000 population. So that's our number.
And that's for 3 consecutive days, then
Yes.
you go on the list.
Yep.
I'm getting a lot of questions, so thank you
There's
very
a
much.
video about it on our Facebook page.
Okay, I'll tell them to look there.
Thank you. So in representation of the Education and Compliance Division, at your board's request, we have efficiently pulled together and onboarded a small team of individuals who have returned from furlough. They are an enthusiastic group. I will say they match my energy, which is a really good start for us. In this process, our goal is to ensure that we connect with individuals that represent our business community, that we hear individuals that represent our constituents who have concerns about safety. So that's our goal. We want to see our community thrive. And to do that, businesses need to thrive, but they must be safe. So that's our goal. Those are our talking points. We're partnering with your Business and Innovations Director. We're partnering with law enforcement and of course, with our public health leaders to ensure that we have a consistent message that at the end of the day, we can come to a place where we've eliminated the coronavirus and we'll do our part. So what you'll see is an individual group responding by site visit and phone calls. Those calls will be supportive. They will offer technical assistance. It'll be an informed outreach to find out how can we help you adapt your business in a very fast-paced adapting framework. So with that, we're, like I said, a small group of about 4 individuals, including myself, and we can expect that we'll have boots on the ground by Monday. With the way in which we've been working, I anticipate that will be sooner than that. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Since we haven't spoken about this program in a couple of weeks, this slide is basically intended as just a reminder to the community. The purpose of Project Room Key is to provide a safe, non-congregate place for homeless individuals to quarantine or isolate who have tested positive for COVID or who are close contacts to a person who has tested positive. In addition to housing, the program helps individuals secure food delivery, arrange for prescription delivery, and on occasion, transportation to appointments to get tested. Calais Brown, our housing advocate coordinator, as well as our social services supervisor, Nicole Griswold, have both taken leadership roles, and their numerous hours of evening and weekend work has been greatly appreciated. Thank you.
So none of this information on communications is new, but just to serve as a reminder, Tuolumne County has a data dashboard that is updated when we send out daily reports, and people are able to look at not only the information for that day, but to also go backwards and look at information from previous days. The Public Health Facebook page also shares similar information. It's also posted on the Tuolumne County website. There is a community resources portal that has information about resources for a variety of resources that people may need, including housing and food. People are always welcome to call the Public Health Call Center at 533-7440 or email us at health@tuolumnecounty.ca.gov. Thank you. Sorry. Did anybody hear that? No. Our business guidance continues to be available. You can email health@tuolumnecounty.ca.gov. It is all of the guidance is posted on the covid19.ca.gov website, and tcdisasterassistance.com also puts together a very clear and easy to follow summary. So that's it.
Any board questions?
Just a comment. Please express our deep appreciation to your entire team. I know they're working extremely hard and in many cases unusually hard. So it's a tough time we're in, and thank your team very much for everything they're doing.
I will pass it on.
You included.
Thanks.
Take my mask off because people said they could hear you, but not me.
Oh, you just have to talk real loud. No.
I can talk loud. No, thank you guys for all the work you're doing. I know you're getting squished from all angles, so thank you. I think the most important thing you said and what Carl said, Supervisor Rotifer, was if you're high risk, stay home. And, you know, I authored a little blog the other day, and people really need to take personal responsibility for their own lives, their own actions. If you go into a restaurant, if you go somewhere you don't like what you see, leave. You don't need to complain. If you work in one of these restaurants and you're concerned about your health, I think that's where that line could be utilized. But again, I've been getting reports of groups and certain organizations targeting businesses, going there, yelling at business owners about not masking up. That is not your job. And if I continue to hear that, I will do what I said about bringing this discussion back to the board, because this is to make our businesses succeed, to give them money, to help them adapt. And so I just want people listening to know that this is, we need to make it through this, and we need to not get on that list and not be getting slammed by these orders to continue to close things down. So please, if you're out there, if you're in a high risk, stay home. If you're not, if you don't like what you see and you don't need to be there, don't be there. And we need to come together and make this work and not be targeting businesses. So just wanted to say that. So thank you for what you guys are doing.
Okay. I have just kind of one quick question, Liza, and it is on testing. And so for clarification, individuals can call their doctors, and is it all of the doctors in Tuolumne County have the capacity to do that testing?
So if your doctor doesn't have the capacity to do that testing, they likely will refer you to someone who can. A lot of the Adventist stuff gets referred into the COVID hotline number, which is 536-5166. If you have an independent physician, the vast majority of them also have the capacity to collect the specimen and send it out for testing. And then if you're a higher priority group, such as a known contact to a case or in a super risky situation such as SNFs and correctional facilities, public health gets involved in prioritizing that testing.
Okay. I know this is something you've been working on, and we all have been advocating for more capacity in Tuolumne County, because I think it is challenging, especially for those folks that find themselves using the Angels campsite. I know of a number of individuals that were concerned they had exposure, and they were waiting 6-7 days for their test results. So I think it's a piece that, again, as a board, we'll continue to advocate on your behalf at the state level to find ways to build in more capacity. And I know it's a conversation topic with the Yosemite Gateway partners also. Okay, thank you for that. So at this time, I'd ask if there's any public comment. Okay, thank you for that. So, you're live with the board?
Yeah, thank you for taking my call once more. This is Bruce Erickson. I really encourage the board to go ahead and just try and get tested over at that Angels Camp place, because we keep referring to it as a testing center. It is not. It's a collection center. And it does take a number of days, like a week, to get an appointment, and then you don't get your results back in a week. It can go 2 weeks. And so once things have gone to the point that somebody, has been exposed and they've got the symptoms, that horse has left the barn, and we've got to get on this sooner rather than later, especially as our kids are going back to school. And there's going to be some batch testing where, a teacher will be able to maybe take mouth swabs of all the kids in their class and send them off as a batch. And if they all come up negative, then the kids will be good to go. But this needs to happen on a regular basis, and if they come up positive in that batch, then they get tested individually. But what you're also getting from Dr. Ortiz is just some bad information. We've got 101 cases that have proved positive in our county, not the number she gave us. I think it was something like 80 or something. And if you look on the Johns Hopkins website, you can see this every day, and it's 101. There's got to be some real changes, but I guess at the start, I'd just say you go ahead and give it a shot and see how it works for testing in this county, and you'll see that people are going to keep their kids home from school. Masks are really important, and Sherry and Carl, you're sitting right across from people talking, and you've got to put masks on. You've got to, you may think you're safe, but you're part of the problem just sitting there. So anyway, it's kind of disillusioning, but I think we've got to look at this quarantine thing real seriously, because they can't get the COVID tests or any other flus test vaccines done in less than 18 months, and this is going to be an ongoing thing. This will be a new normal of some kind for us. Thank you very much.
Okay, I got a couple comments.
Can I
First of all,
just
Dr.
clarify?
Dr. Ortiz clearly gave the effective date in her briefing of the 19th. And those figures were accurate as of the 19th, number one. Number two, I have been tested at the site in Calaveras twice, and my results, I never had to wait more than 4 days to get an appointment, and my results were in 6 days. So you're 3 to 4, 2 to 3, whatever weeks you're talking about, it's less than 10 days. And third, our county council read the policy on us masking, and so thank you very much for your concern.
Can I just make a couple
Dr.
comments?
Ortiz?
So the current case rate, which is available on our dashboard and in many other sites, which is where Johns Hopkins gets the information from, is 101. The date that we had 85 cases was on the 19th, which I stated. And when I refer to our case rate, that is per 100,000. So All of that information is very clearly available on our data dashboard and all of our county websites. I will also reiterate that I have advised in this meeting and many others that symptomatic people should contact their healthcare provider for testing. Testing is available in Sonora, and people who have been exposed should contact the Public Health Department for access to expedited testing, again, in Sonora. I have also gone to the state testing site in Angels Camp 3 times at this point, and that is more appropriate for people to do surveillance testing. We recommend that symptomatic people and exposed people contact their healthcare provider and contact the Public Health Department.
Thank you for that clarification. Additional public comment?
Hi, I just want to say I'm Tom Taylor from District 5. I am kind of stunned by Mr. Kirk's suggestion that the purpose of this educational program is to support business success and not to protect our community. That seems like a weird set of priorities there. And I would like to ask how he thinks this education program is supposed to work if people are discouraged from reporting businesses that are not in compliance with the guidelines and mandates. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't want to get into a debate situation, so I would encourage you to reach out.
Yeah. Please reach out to me. You can find my email. You can also read part of my blog from yesterday. It goes in more detail. Sometimes when we're up here making comments, we don't put our full thought behind it, but if you like further explanation, email me or look at my blog. That will give you a little bit more information, but reach out.
Thank you.
Okay. Hello. I just wanted to also reiterate that the information that you have been given was from the 19th, and now it's the 21st, and it is not 85, it's 101 people. And there are also 5 hospitalized, which is an important number as well. This is growing exponentially, and for somebody sitting there on your board to say, don't target businesses, just don't go there, is not going to help a small business to thrive, because nobody's going to go to those businesses. And I can't believe I'm hearing somebody at Board of Supervisors say that and then not actually respond to somebody when they ask the question to the community here, so we can all hear what your response is, not call me on the side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. And as a point of order, during public comment we are not supposed to be engaging in back and forth conversation. I'm looking at County Council for clarification.
That's true for oral communications, but when you have an agenda item on, as long as it's relevant to the agenda item, your board can engage in that dialogue.
All right, well, thank you for that clarification. My misunderstanding. Supervisor Kirk, if you would like to address the comment.
I'll keep it short and simple. If you read my blog, I did it for 2 reasons. One, why I supported the branch of the education going to businesses who aren't in compliance. The first reason was so we don't get to surge capacity. You brought up the 5 numbers that are hospitalized. Yeah, we only have 6 ICU beds. I don't know if those can I get some clarification on those hospital beds, ICU or just hospital?
That is not publicly available.
That's not publicly available. So I'm assuming they're not all ICU.
We are not at full capacity with our ICU beds. That is publicly available on
Right.
the website.
So the educate. Oh, you're.
Sorry. Whether or not the 5 specific individuals who are currently hospitalized are in the ICU or not is not publicly available information. However, our ICU bed capacity is publicly available information on the state County Data Monitoring website.
Okay.
And we are not currently at the trigger point and not at capacity.
So part of the reason why I support that branch of public health is so that we don't reach surge. That was the first thing I said. In regards to targeting local businesses, maybe what you don't know who's on the other line is I have been getting phone calls and reports from businesses, from not individuals but groups of people or political organizations that are targeting local businesses for whatever reason. So to clarify, if I work in one of these businesses and I don't feel safe and I'm not mandated to wear a mask, I could see how that component of this could work. What I'm saying is if you're a group or if you're a political organization targeting local businesses, that to me, I don't support. So if that's not clear to you, feel free to call me. But again, so another example, if I'm an elderly person and I'm not Google savvy and I can't order my groceries online and I have to go to a store to get my groceries, and in that store a lot of people aren't masking up, that's where that I believe would be a good resource to contact. Hey, this grocery store isn't requiring masking, I don't feel safe. But that same elderly person doesn't have to go to the bar, doesn't have to go to a restaurant. And so what I'm saying is be responsible. If you don't have to go places, don't. But if you have to go somewhere and that organization or that business is putting you in jeopardy, that's where I think it's appropriate. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit. If you disagree with me, that's fine. That's part of living in a free country, but that's kind of where I stand on it. So if I wasn't clear, and if you still have questions, please feel free to email, call me. But read my blog. The very first statement I put on there was I do not want to get to surge. And surge obviously means transmission. It means people are getting sick. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for holding. Are you ready to speak to the board?
What Supervisor Kirk just said, and I would like to say in opposition to what our...
I'm sorry, Mr. Erickson.
It's not a
And I'm
problem of
looking at
reagent.
Carrillo for confirmation on this.
It's a
Yeah,
matter of
if someone
PCR
already
instruments.
spoke.
We need to, again, Brown Act procedures. Ms. Carrillo, can you explain the procedure for
Right.
public comment?
So right now, your board is limiting, per the agenda, 3 minutes per speaker per item. So from a fairness perspective, you have the ability to tell someone that they've already spoken, they don't get to continue to comment.
Thank you for that clarification. And that is posted on our agenda also. And I would encourage anyone to reach out to the individual board members afterwards if you want to continue the conversation. Okay. Is there any other public comment from other individuals? Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Ortiz. Mrs. Spino, appreciate the update. Ms. Allen, do good things. Will the clerk please read our second 9 a.m. appointment?
Presentation of Tuolumne County Government Social Media Update. Good morning, Board. I am Christina Cunha, and I am here today to, as Heather Ryan is right here, setting up for the presentation. Heather was named your new board clerk, and Heather comes to us. She began her work in Tuolumne County at Public Works in March of last year. And that position was eliminated through layoffs, and so she was brought on as a OES to help us in the office with the tremendous OES kinds of tasks we have, and has been with us since that time. And since the retirement of Alicia Jamar in July, we have done some interviews, and Heather Ryan was selected as the board clerk. So she will be here today presenting your second 9 a.m., and then eventually you'll get to see her beautiful face right there in front of you every Tuesday.
So before you start, let me congratulate you, welcome you, and we're very happy to have you in that position, as I think a number of county staff that will be working with you would also extend their congratulations.
Thank you so much. All right. Good morning, board members and Chair Brennan. I'm here to give you a social media update from the County Administrator's Office. We began this last year, right around November 2019. Under the direction of our County Administrator, Tracy Riggs, we began our social media outreach to connect with the public and market our We Are Tuolumne County community forums. These events offered constituents the opportunity to meet with their Tuolumne County staff and build rapport with key department team members. We utilize social media in combination with printed ads and the My Motherlode community calendar in order to reach out to the public in multiple ways. We focused on social media because it is a popular and free form of marketing to a targeted audience. We focused on Facebook, Instagram, and Nextdoor as those forums have the highest potential for impact with our regional audience, and that was under the wonderful guidance of some of our other county PIOs who are already trained in utilizing these platforms. Also using some of the data from our civic engagement survey that we did last January to February, we received over 1,000 responses, and social media was ranked number 3. This gave us the confidence that we were moving in the right direction and could potentially be providing our public with an additional way to communicate with us that they hadn't been able to before. When creating our accounts all over again, we realized that we needed to create a brand. We needed to help people understand what these accounts are for, who we are, and that is We Are Tuolumne County. This is more than just a hashtag. Tuolumne County government staff is comprised of over 80% of Tuolumne County residents. So that means more than 80% of us live here, work here, and lead our lives here. So when we started, we had to see what was already done before so that we could move forward. We had a Facebook account and a Twitter account. The Twitter account did not have much interaction. Our following numbers were low, and under the advisement of the other PIOs, we stayed away from Twitter. We focused on Facebook and added Instagram and Nextdoor. As you can see, we had 500 followers, and we've recently grown that to over 1,700. Instagram, we started at 0, and we're over 1,000. And Nextdoor, it's a different platform. There, people are already subscribed and registered under the county. Excuse me. And so we already have a targeted, focused audience, which is great. And going forward, we realized, before it had only been links to, say, agenda items or committee and commission. And so we wanted to do more. With Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok taking over social media, we really wanted to focus on things with bigger, bolder visuals, video content, which we're working on. But this is able to help us get the public's eye, get them to take a second and really look at what we're trying to tell them. Connecting during COVID-19. In order to provide clear and organized information to our community, we schedule events using the events function of our Facebook account and add additional agencies, local agencies, to co-host in order to help them share our information and also show a greater community that we're working not just within our organizations, but with other organizations in Tuolumne County. And then utilizing the technology available to us, we are able to receive questions and topics of interest from the public and then give the staff time to research and provide thoughtful responses. As I'm sure you know, the more followers we have, the more effective we can be at communicating with our community members. We do not post content geared towards generating likes. Our guide to content creation is focused on providing followers with a direct connection to a single source of information on their Board of Supervisors, County Administration Office, and Office of Emergency Services. As a practice, we will provide links to our county website or to a confirmed source of accurate information that the public can trust. And usually we try and not just provide information, but also give them a takeaway or something that they can take action with to help them engage with our page. And recently, due to the increased community transmission, we did a post boost on a recent press release from the Office of Emergency Services. And what you can see here is we actually didn't need very much of that because the community is so engaged. You see there's over 7,700 reactions, the majority of which are likes. Those are really important to us because that shows that people are seeing the content, they're digesting it, and they're reacting to it. Additionally, the amount of comments and the amount of shares is really great. That shows that people want to be involved, they want to support the message, and they want to be a part of it. Open for any questions.
Are there any board questions? Just want to thank you for providing the data. That was really interesting.
I just had one kind of comment. I think it's really great that you're looking into this. Gone are the days where the way you got your information was to come down to the county building and look at what was posted out front. Now, we still do that, but I know of a few people who still check those boards, but that's not the way our residents consume information about what their government is doing any longer. And so I think it's long overdue, in fact, to look at ways of modernizing the way we disseminate county information on these social media platforms. So I think that you're doing a fantastic job, and we're very glad to have you working on this particular issue because, our government thrives in an open dialogue with the residents in the community. And so that's kind of the aim, the way I see it, of the work you're doing here. So thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I would just echo those comments, and I found the slide on civic engagement, the survey that was done, really informative and really hit on how folks are getting their information. So happy that you're moving on this, and I think it will serve our constituents.
Thank you.
At this time, is there any public comment on the second 9 a.m.? All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Cunha, will you please read the consent calendar?
Approving the minutes of the meetings held on July 7th, 2020 and July 15th, 2020. As Tuolumne Public Power Agency, consideration of approving the Tuolumne Public Power Agency fiscal year 2021 budget and setting the consumption rate at 0.08 per kilowatt hour. Recognizing the passing of Kathy Bramblett, resignation of Jim Lee from the Commission on Aging, and directing the clerk of the board to post a notice of vacancies. Rescinding Resolution 5911 and adopting Resolution 6620, changing the standard days and hours of operations of the animal control shelter. Approving the reappointment of Julianne Zavlo Martin, Stacy Hudson, Kelly Thomas, Caitlin Hansen, Aaron Galdalfer Brune, Christina Herrera, and Tiffany Flies to the local Child Care and Development Planning Council for terms to expire June 30, 2022, approving COVID-19 hospital preparedness program, supplement of funding in the amount of $126,893, approving funding in the amount of $5,000 from the San Joaquin Valley Public Health Consortium for COVID-19 prevention supplies for local vulnerable populations, approving a contract not to exceed $219,155 for the removal and replacement of the existing HVAC chiller from the County Administrator's Building located at 2 South Green Street, accepting the resignation of Mark Banks from the Board of Supervisors Planning Committee and directing the clerk of the Board of Supervisors to post a notice of vacancy and send a letter of appreciation, accepting the resignation of Mark Banks from the Airport Land Use Commission and directing the clerk of the Board of Supervisors to post a notice of vacancy and send a letter of appreciation.
Thank you. Would any member like to pull an item?
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull item number 8.
And 6.
6 and 8. All right. At this time, is there any public comment on the consent calendar minus items 6 and 8? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board.
Move on the consent calendar, less 6 and 8.
Second.
Motion from Supervisor Rotifer, a second from Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with 1 absent. Okay, will the clerk please read item 6?
Approving COVID-19 hospital preparedness program supplemental funding in the amount of $126,893.
Mrs. Spino.
As mentioned probably in many of our board meetings, we mentioned applying for every dollar that's available to us. And this is an example of funding that we've applied for. It was a quick turnaround time. So we have not yet determined exactly what we're going to do with the funding. But I believe Supervisor Kirk was interested in a little bit more information.
Yeah, and you can keep it real short, just to the email I sent. In the first paragraph, it notes that funding through this grant would be utilized to improve surge capacity and for several things, including improving infrastructure. So I had asked Mr. Becca what infrastructure would be updated regarding specifically planning for surge. And I understand it's not a lot of money, but one of the main reasons why we did the whole lockdown order, closing everything down, was specifically surge. So I was just curious if we get the monies, which we are, and I know the hospital is their own separate entity, but if we had an idea of maybe what they're looking at to help increase surge capacity.
So what we're doing right now is we're planning for an alternative care site, and that site includes looking at opening up a site at the fairgrounds. So that would require equipment, staff. There's laundry services. There's dietitian services. So we'll be looking at supporting some of those efforts.
That was it.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing no public comment, looking for a motion.
I'll move on staff recommendation for hospital preparedness program, supplemental funding in the amount of $126,893.
Second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Kirk, a second from Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Will the clerk please read item number 8?
Approving a contract not to exceed $219,155 for the removal and replacement of the existing HVAC chiller for the County Administrator's Building located at 2 South Green Street.
Mr. Earhart.
Yes, good morning, members of the board, Madam Chair. So as you know, this building was constructed in 1980, and at that time the HVAC unit that was put on it was sufficient, obviously, and ran this building. However, over the years, We've had a lot of issues with it, and now today it is running about 50% capacity, trying to keep this building cool. And I think we've talked about this before. If this HVAC fails, especially during the extreme heat, we will be forced to close the building and move staff and the public out and find additional work locations. So we have worked with a company called, actually it's a self-funded government organization called Sourcewell, formerly known as the National Joint Powers Alliance. They go out and they do competitive bidding processes for us. They draft contracts. It streamlines the process for government organizations to get public works projects done. So that's what we've done. We've reached out. We've had a contractor on site to provide a bid, considering all factors. And so that's what this contract before you is today, is to get this HVAC system replaced so we can make sure we maintain operations within the county administration building. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, and thank you very much for that report. I just wanted to highlight this for a couple of reasons, and I had a couple of questions. This is a perfect example of a situation where if you defer maintenance, you end up with a higher cost overall down the road. And so I'm very glad that we're addressing this now. I think it's said in the board packet that this is a 30-year-old unit that we're working with, or something.
Is from 1980.
Yeah, from 1980. Okay, so a little bit older than I am. So just to give you an idea, my questions are, one, how are we paying for this? Is it in the budget for this work? And then I have one more question.
Okay, yes. So knowing that we've had these ongoing issues, this process actually started last fiscal year. We didn't have the money in the budget last fiscal year to do this, so we made sure that that was a priority in the budget that your board approved last month.
Okay, so this is, but we have budgeted for this. Have we looked at leveraging CARES Act funding for this type of, is that a possibility?
I don't believe the CARES Act funding would be a possibility, because this is deferred maintenance. It's something that, would need to be maintained for ongoing operations regardless of COVID-19.
Okay, I had to give it a shot.
We're always looking.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Is there any public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back.
I'll move on item 8, staff recommendation.
Second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Rotifer, a second from Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Will the clerk please read our 10 a.m. appointment?
Accepting the, excuse me, I apologize. Presentation of Innovation and Business Assistance Year Review.
Morning, Chair and Board of Supervisors. I actually just passed out to you today the presentation in a PDF on a piece of paper form, as well as a duplicate of some of the data I'll share towards the beginning, just in a bigger format, because when it came out on a 3-slide, there's no way you'll read it. So that's kind of what you got delivered. I wanted to start with 2 things this morning, and I'll start with, since she presented earlier, that Heather was absolutely vital to a lot of the efforts that Innovation and Business Assistance did in the past 3 months. So I'm glad to see that she's a part of our staff full time now. I think you guys made a good decision. I'm really happy that Heather has this opportunity. And then for me, I wanted to, again, reiterate how much I've enjoyed this past year. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and I've actually really, really enjoyed this position. So thank you. With that, this is my year review with a little bit of a bend towards the last few months, and then an additional data about mobility in the past few months that you've requested to hear from Cubic. So that's Cubic is a company that aggregates cell phone data across the country. And so what I've done is brought it to California and Tuolumne County. So this first slide shows you how much people are moving around. So is a cell phone changing locations? And so what you can see is the blue line shows a huge dip, and that's our shelter in place. At the height of our shelter in place, the Tuolumne County residents stopped moving about 44%. So we had that much of a change, and you can see we're almost back to normal. Our neighbor, Calaveras County, is up about 1% based on last year, and so this is a comparison of year over year. One thing that I do want to note and that you kind of want to see is that on the left there is California. You can see that the rural counties are having a difference in how much people are moving. The blue means people are moving less. But more importantly, it's about contact too. So the blue line again is that mobility, how much are people moving? But you can see this orange line is contact. So this contact is 2 or more devices coming within 50 feet of each other for a 5-minute period. So you can see even though Tuolumne County residents are moving around about the same pre-coronavirus, they're moving or getting in contact 40% less. So we are seeing some changes in Tuolumne County residents' habits. In the Bay Area, just for example, they still have a lot of mandated and different rules than we do, and they're at a 70-80% less contact than they were last year. For relocations, this is defined as a device having persistently relocated to a new primary residence for at least 25 days. You'll see a huge spike in April, or late March, early April. One thing I want to note is that this does not necessarily mean that our population grew by 3.5%. If you looked at Tuolumne County Association of Realtors, yesterday they released their home data, and for the second quarter, which includes April and May, there's only about 23 homes sold. So really what you're looking at is most likely second homeowners coming to Tuolumne County and utilizing their residence up here. On the left, you can see top destinations. So top destinations mean where are Tuolumne County residents going, right? So if Tuolumne County resident left and went to Alameda for 25 days, they were about 15% of our residents did that. Top origins is where are people coming from. So you can see about 53% of Stanislaus County came to Tuolumne County and stayed for 25 plus days. The other thing that is not on this slide, but I found very interesting, is they then using cell phone data and knowing those users, split it up on social economics. So about that 3.5% new population, 22.5% are what they call high income balance cell phone users, and about 7% are low income balance users. This is of note because that is a little bit different from our neighbors. I tried to compare to our neighbors, Calaveras and Mariposa, and what we did see is that they were losing high-income population. Now, this is good if this is new future home residents, and this is why actually Cubic releases this data, is it allows us as a county to kind of plan for future tax revenue. However, we'll see how that works out if it is for long-term or if this is just the second home buyers hanging out during the shelter-in-places. The final thing I wanted to note is this is your mobility flow. So the census always releases data on kind of a 10-year basis about where are people commuting. And the California does it as well, but it's very lagging, so you have to wait about a year to see that data. This is in the past few weeks. Where are people coming from, at least on a cell phone basis? And you can see the huge amount of our origins and our top destinations are Stanislaus, Calaveras, San Joaquin. This makes a lot of sense. This is your commuting pattern of our workers back and forth. So really what you're looking at is the difference between those counties as the additional travel. So with that in mind, do you have any questions on Cubic data before I go on to my presentation?
That last slide is daily movement? Or the
weekly. I believe this is weekly data aggregated.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's the ratio, for example, the origins, it's the ratio of devices arriving to the county to total users in our county. Okay?
Is there some, and this may be what you're going to be getting into next, but is there some analysis of how best to use this information? Because we can draw our own conclusions from what this might mean, but is there some kind of protocol for analyzing this?
Yeah. So I can share you how and why I would present it to you. So as your Innovation and Business Assistance Director, I'm always thinking about businesses on how they can better their expenditures and where they should focus their attention. And so I originally brought this to your board and some of your staff because we were expending money on advertisements to the Bay Area about not traveling to Tuolumne County. And what I saw was a disparity that actually where we should be spending our money was actually the Stanislaus, San Joaquin counties for that recreational travel. So that's where I want you to kind of see and think about where this data is important, is really as a basis of understanding who you're targeting when you're trying to talk about coronavirus in Tuolumne County.
Yeah, or extrapolate it out to any other piece of information. And I found that really interesting. And San Benito was one I would not have anticipated, and to see that one, I think it was at 20%, I was surprised by that.
Right, and then this is also now, when you move away from coronavirus, I see this as a very useful tool for me long term. Because it's exactly like you said, I would have never thought San Benito. So if I already see that Alameda County is very interested in moving to Tuolumne County long term, or that's where a lot of our second homeowners are, then maybe that's where I should start to consider where I reach out for potential businesses to join Tuolumne County. So I'm utilizing it in the sense of looking for potential marketing targets, where I think you should be looking at it right now in the short term for coronavirus type marketing or understanding of visitors to Tuolumne County. Is that fair? Perfect. So to the past year, as a reminder, what is the Innovation and Business Assistance main 3 pillars? Business retention, helping Tuolumne County businesses stay and thrive. Business expansion, helping Tuolumne County business expand within the county, but also within the state, the country, internationally. And business attraction, trying to get businesses to join our community. If you remember, February 2020, I came in very optimistic, all about attraction, saying that I'm only going to try to go out and attract potentially and really focus my attention on hospitality, senior care, and natural resources manufacturing. Well, 1 month later, we had a strong pivot to retention. Coronavirus came, and really what I saw as the 3 big issues that I needed to prioritize was know who Tuolumne County businesses were, prioritize what information I was getting to them, and then integrate a communication strategy. The biggest problem I had was that we have no business license, which equals we have no business data. So I don't know who the business owners are. I don't know how to contact them. And I don't know how to find them other than a Google search, which I did resort to at some point in the very beginning to really start this process going. But then in the meantime, other than Google searches, it was reaching out to the health department, reaching out to the fire department, reaching out to Debbie and fictitious business license, reaching out to the city, because if I'm going to send out mass information, then we might as well join the city and make sure they're getting the right information. I got a combined data of 3,588 businesses, but this doesn't necessarily mean that's how many are in Tuolumne County. That just means that might have been an old business that we still had on rolls, and so we had to go through, and it was duplicates. By the end of going through all that data, and I would like to thank Chad for helping me that with the administrator's office. He was an Excel whiz that helped me kind of narrow it down. We got down to about 2,721 business names, and again, this is more businesses than are probably in Tuolumne County, but at some point those contacts had an association, worked for, or a part of a business. Really what I had for everyone was a contact phone number, an address, and a primary contact. Email addresses what I'm getting added and trying to really prioritize. The breakdown on the right is those of the current contact information I had, the breakdown of the city versus the unincorporated Tuolumne County. So you can see the county is about 62% of the contact information that I do have. With that contact information, I then prioritized what information was the priority. Small business administration, economic injury, disaster loan, paycheck protection, unemployment, and then opening guidance. It was really about financial resources towards the beginning, then helping them through the process of understanding what is the guidance, how do I utilize it. Again, another thank you. About March 10th, I was already communicating with about 10 businesses about what were the impacts, just trying to fill out and see where my role was. By March 11th or 12th, I got an email from Dana at Cal OES asking us to fill out forms to specifically add to the presidential declaration. By March 13th, I got Patrick and Kim from the Bradford Inn to return a sheet, which is amazing. And we were actually a primary county for that presidential declaration, or the small business, sorry, not presidential, the small business economic disaster declaration. This is important because if it had stopped there, we would have been one of the primary counties and only our contiguous counties to be able to apply for the economic injury disaster loan. And when it comes to a first come, first served basis on priority funding, that's huge. I then had to have a communication strategy. So we started with personal phone calls, literally dialing the numbers that we had on that list and telling them the information that we could share. Then luckily I learned about direct automated phone call and a system that was actually cheap, affordable, and we could use and prioritize literally getting texts and voicemails to people's phone numbers. We went on to weekly webinars, now bi-weekly webinars, weekly and daily. Towards the beginning, it was daily email updates. By the end, it was weekly email updates. And then also implemented the Disaster Assistant website and blog that went live on March 15th. Again, that is, I've talked about a long-term solution. So hopefully after coronavirus, or hopefully if it doesn't happen, but we have it, if there's another wildfire or any sort of flooding, this will be a great spot for businesses who are affected in a short-term basis to find grants or information. Just some numbers on the direct contacts. So when I said we called physically dialing, that was about 563 call attempts on March 26th, and April 3rd is about 12. And that the reason I say attempts is that sometimes those phone numbers weren't working. Sometimes we only left messages. Sometimes we couldn't leave a message. But by April 6th, we had implemented that direct phone call and text message. And those were about how many people we could reach. On the landline call attempts, we had approximately 50 volunteers, including your Board of Supervisors, so thank you. Just to reiterate what we did as call volunteers, or what I requested of call volunteers, each of these individuals received a list of about 20 to 25 businesses with a name, a contact. Each had a script that I supplied about a very specific topic, pertinent information, and then a stated goal of getting an email so that we could then send a response email with those email links that we talked about on the phone call. By the time we got to the automated call, this is an example of the April 6th. This was the direct text that was sent, but I also voiced it and sent it as a voice message. So those phones that didn't get a text, because a lot of our business owners are not using their cell phones as their main number for their business, they're the ones that got voicemails. April 14th, you can see there's a huge spike in webinar attendance. That was because we sent out information via text, automated blogs about the SBA director for the Don Golick. She did a webinar in the morning for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and Paycheck Protection Program, which was really, hindsight, very important, and we'll get to that and why. April 22nd was when we implemented our first evening webinar on guidance documents. You can see it started to tailor down, which is why we decided to go bi-weekly to encourage and not have too much webinar fatigue. Emails and blogs. The email list is now about 460. In the past 3 months, I've authored about 62 blogs, and those are the blogs then turned into the email newsletters as well. Now let's get into some hard data. So about 2 weeks ago, a week ago, the Small Business Administration released raw data about Paycheck Protection Program numbers. This is just PPP. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan, we do not have that information yet. So again, this is just the PPP numbers. And these were the ones that were given out through the local banks. We saw a total of 634 loans from the beginning of the program to June 29th. For $150,000, we know the exact dollar amount that was given from that time period, and that's just shy of $22 million. If a business received more than $150,000, it was a range. So we don't have a final total for those for $150,000 or more. So that means our total loan amount can either be on the low side of $32 million or the high side of just shy of $48 million because of that range. When they applied for a PPP loan, they also had to talk about where they were going to use that money. So we have a direct correlation to jobs retained, and that's about 4,452 jobs. And more importantly, in my mind, because I was a small business owner, 40% of these loans went to our mom and pop shops, our sole proprietors, our self-employed, independent contractors, or businesses, however they're set up, with 0 to 1 jobs retained. Of note, the total loan amount, so the 634, 574 of those loans are on the 150 or less. When you break it down about the top 10 industries, and then this is just focusing on the 150,000 or less, okay? 150,000 or less, the top 10 industries that received dollar amounts was other services. So these are your equipment, machinery repair, your laundry, your dry cleaning, your personal service like barbers, full service restaurants. And then you can see that we shift to office of dentists, CPAs, and physicians, and then hotels. And for me, the dentists, physicians, and the CPAs make sense on the total dollar amount because the dentists and the physicians probably utilize the CPA, and they're a little bit more sophisticated in their accounting measures. So that's why you probably see a decent amount that went to that industry. But more importantly, the jobs retained for those top 10 industries is exactly where we had hoped. And we definitely know as Tuolumne County, tourism is a huge portion of our industry, and we have a lot of employment in tourism. So seeing that the jobs retained were in full service, the other services and the hotels is exactly where we want to see it. By the numbers, this I just found interesting. So I've been working with a professor out of Sonoma State who has a PhD in economics. And so we went through this data together to make sure I'm presenting it in a way that makes sense for you and understandable. And one of the conversations that we had was this idea of the jobs retained and then the jobs retained by an employer. So these are those jobs that were 2+. So 0 to 1 is most likely a sole proprietor or a business that's just their own business. If you look at those jobs for 2+ that were retained, that's about 4,424 jobs. That is equatable to a 20% of unemployment. And so we're essentially saying that worst case scenario in April of 2020, we could have seen a 37% unemployment rate if we didn't have the PPP loans into Tuolumne County, which is pretty scary, but it's an amazing stat for me, and it's a little disheartening. The final note on the PPP that I found very interesting is this is loans approved by day. So just a couple of things to get you in frame for this. This doesn't mean that a person applied on May 3rd and received funding May 3rd. This means that they received their funds on May 3rd. So most likely they applied maybe at least 2 days, but most likely a week before that. The second thing to note is that on April 16th, you see a gap to April 27th. April 16th, PPP ran out of funding. That was it for that first round. So if you did not get an application in before April 16th, you were waiting for the second round of funding, which we had all hoped. And luckily, it did become another portion. So April 16th is important in the fact that if you're getting funds from April 27th to May 2nd, you were in part of that first round of funding. May 3rd is another important day that you see a spike on a lot of these loans per day because that's when the second funding hit. So April 27th, applications opened back up. May 3rd, that was the first day of the second round of funding. For the Central Sierra Economic Development District, meaning our 5 counties, you think of Alpine, Amador, Calveras, Tuolumne, Mariposa, this is without us in the graph. You can see about 18% of Central Sierra Economic Development District businesses received funding prior to that first allocation, right? And the vast majority received funding after that May 6th, even well beyond that May 3rd spike. However, for Tuolumne County, we saw 60% of our businesses receive PPP funding prior to May 2nd, which tells me our businesses understood what the priority was, the urgency was, and was able to get an application in before April 16th to get their funding in that first allocation. It's about 15% on May 3rd, and since then we've seen about 25% of our businesses still accessing that. But I think this is a very telling graph and very exciting for me.
I'm sorry, what percent is still accessing?
So this is again April 3rd to June 29th. I don't have past June 29th, but from May 4th to essentially June 29th was about 25%. Prior to May 2nd, that first allocation, 60% of businesses got PPP funding.
Okay.
Moving off of the Paycheck Protection Program, just a little snapshot of the website I produced on Tuolumne County Disaster Assistance. Again, it came to being on March 15th, 4 days prior to the shelter in place, so it was a very active site when we started to see changes coming on rapidly. I include this to show that I wasn't just putting up a website and then letting it sit. I was actively interacting with it to really understand how people were utilizing it or how business owners were utilizing it and when. So you can see there was huge spikes when it came to financial resources, and then really when we started to open that guidance draft. Those guidance draft and the guidance documents, those were our heavy links from the site. The other thing of note that's really important is total views. So while we're looking at how people are totally using the website, we're also looking at each individual page. I quickly realized that while those resource pages were important, like the county resources, the homepage were important, what people were actually spending their time on were the blogs. So that is why I went full into blogs and really focused on the blogs and email newsletters. The average time was about 2 minutes on the entire site and those individual pages, but you can see when it came to a blog, we were spending 10 minutes plus on the top 10. The other thing to note was then the demographics. What age range was using it allows me to tailor the language, and then also how people were returning to it. The thing that I wanted to know was if you were a new visitor and then you returned, were you using it more? Were they finding it useful? And I saw that they were. So on average, those sessions went from about a minute to just shy of 2 minutes. Finally, then, where were the people using it? The thing I wanted to note at the very top is that it says say Sonora. This doesn't mean just City of Sonora. This is based on IP addresses. So a lot of times this includes East Sonora, unincorporated Sonora. So what's next? So we're going to continue the retention efforts while this time in the short term, but then also adapt our attraction strategy that I proposed to you in February. For the retention efforts going forward, we'll continue to find more contacts for Tuolumne County businesses to really refine and really understand who they are. In the short term, that really is just reaching out to chambers, business councils, and those businesses that I do have a list for, just to really refine it, but also at some point have the conversation, does a business license make sense in Tuolumne County? Then we're going to integrate the COVID-19 business shifts into strategies. So how are we adapting? How are we innovating? How are we changing Tuolumne County policies to adapt to the coronavirus era? And this is something we've always had conversations on and we've already been doing, which is about, for example, the restaurants. What does it mean for Tuolumne County restaurants to be able to go outside in this period? We'll continue to do bi-weekly evening webinars for however long it makes sense. The past few weeks have been about 40, 50 participants. When we start to get down in the 20s and there really is less participation, that's when I think we'll start to consider to drop the bi-weekly, maybe go monthly or even stop it for the time being until something changes. But I feel okay about that because we are shifting to a weekly in the morning, Thursday, 9 a.m. Tuolumne Talks Business podcast, which we will cover some adaptation strategies, some innovations, and some really coronavirus topics. Finally, for retention, we'll talk about incentives and program sharing. So really hammering to Tuolumne County businesses, there are options, there are incentives, there are other ways other than CARES Act funding to find ways to supplement your business model. So for example, PG&E has a rebate program for manufacturing, food processing, and a few other types of businesses. Currently working with 9 businesses through the process. One business in Tuolumne County is about to save about $40,000 per year on their electricity rate. And that's going to be huge for their business. It's essentially, it comes down to about a 12% rate reduction for 5 years. And that's a 12% per month. Adapting the attraction strategy. Again, this is about integrating COVID business shifts. So there is a huge shift to telecommuting. There's a huge shift out of cities. There's a change in supply chain. So really understanding what are some of these next changes that are going to be occurring and really adapting them. I also want to utilize the essential business list. I found it very interesting that towards the beginning, and I saved it, California state government sent out a list that says XYZ, these businesses are essential, XYZ, these are not. I saw that as a list saying, hey, here is where we can start to look at businesses that would make our community more resilient. Maybe we should focus some of our adaptation strategy or attraction strategies towards those businesses to make it more of a resilient community. Just some ideas. Yes.
And on that first element you have, or the elements you have there. I know that we had a discussion months ago before COVID-19 about this idea that businesses would move more toward telecommuting and that people could have more freedom to work from home. And we had basically the discussion that it's not really happening. It's something that many people within the community and other communities like ours have wished for years, but we've never really seen it materialize. Since COVID-19 has occurred, I've seen it materialize. It's actually been quite surprising that we have actually had people coming to second homes or coming up to Tuolumne County to work remotely at businesses outside of the county. So it might be worth taking a second look at that as a possible
Absolutely.
industry that we could grow in. Because, I had been, I think we kind of were on the same wavelength that it just seemed like this was a pipe dream that rural counties had for years. But now we're actually seeing some movement in this area, so it's worth taking a second look at.
Agreed. And it's not just Tuolumne County. We're seeing across the Sierra Nevada region. So really why I think it should now be a priority is to make sure we're setting ourselves apart. And so in a little bit on one of the final slides, I'll tell you the idea where I'm headed towards a strategy towards telecommuters. Go ahead.
Real quick.
Yep.
There's a flip side to that, and that's you're going to end up with some empty storefronts and things that are not storefronts necessarily, but business fronts. How do we capitalize on that? How do we retool so we don't have dead main streets and that kind of stuff? So there is a flip side to that, and if we're kind of leading the thought process on that, maybe we can capitalize on that as well.
Sure, and then this comes back to reconsidering what commercial means in Tuolumne County as well. And so one of the ways I'm doing that is working with business owners or those commercial property owners that may have empty storefronts and may want to talk about changing some of their zoning towards a mixed use so that then they can utilize it for long-term rentals, because obviously we are having a rental shortage, and especially in the city as well with Airbnbs and Pine Mountain Lake having Airbnb problems. So it is a good potential spot to really reconsider what does commercial mean. So agreed.
Excellent. Thank
Absolutely. You. Attraction strategy. The Tuolumne Talks business is both, I think, a retention and attraction strategy. For example, the Tuolumne County Tuolumne Talks business podcast. We started, the first one was on the Small Business Administration with Paycheck Protection Program updates with Don Golick again. But then we went to Cal Competes, which is a tax credit incentive for manufacturing companies to encourage their joining the California community or making sure that they retain into the California community. Last Thursday, we talked to a business adaptation expert from Los Angeles. And this week, we're talking to a local data or a data aggregate company that has advice on understanding underrepresented industries and understanding how you can utilize data into business plans and then use it to also adapt. So that's why I think it's both retention and attraction strategy, and I'm excited about this podcast. Just last thing, the data aggregate, they're also going to be a huge part of our future website to come, which has been in the works, but have been a little distracted with the coronavirus. And so hopefully we can get this site up and running. My goal was the end of July, and I'm really hoping to stick to that. And so I will update you as it's done. Again, this will probably be selecttuolumne.com. This is just a site map of kind of loosely what it's going to look like. One of the tools I'm really excited about is getting away from paper and sending people pamphlets. This is a business assistant tool. So when someone calls me and says, hey, how do I start a business? I don't necessarily have to send them directly to SBDC. I can send them to SBDC, but say, go to selecttuolumne.com. We got a tool that shows you how to write business plans, how to write marketing plans, but then it also has indicators, data directly there for you. It has maps on where workforce is in Tuolumne County for your specific type of industry. And then also how to connect with myself or SBDC or the chambers or any of those business organizations that will help you. So this is a bit how to start a business in Tuolumne County online. So I'm very excited about that. Just an idea of what the data and utilizing it's going to be very visual. The new website is very visual with data. Finally, this goes back to what you were talking about, Supervisor Campbell, the telecommuting, the attracting businesses on a more personal basis now. So we have a come home campaign that we're loosely working on that sort of works along the visit Tuolumne branding and how this wander freely and kind of come back to where you were born. And it allows me to send them a postcard in the mail, but it has a direct link that only they get. This is very old marketing, like the phone call. You get this certain number, so I know you called me. And so I'll be able to track those postcards to see if I send you a postcard in, let's just say, Solano, California, and I see that someone's looking from Solano, California. I know then I can follow up and make sure I send them an additional email or maybe find them with a social media ad. So this will allow me to have some really targeted telecommuting or business-specific advertising. I told you about natural resources management and manufacturing. That was going to be one of the key industries. We're seeing a lot of traction with that. I've been integrating or discussing with probably 6+ businesses about the Chinese camp location, about joining Tuolumne County, joining the Standard Park. We have some pretty good opportunities. We met with one even this last week on Thursday, so I'm very excited. I think there's a lot of movement. The biggest hurdle that I'm seeing is a supply issue. So Sierra Nevada Conservancy is essentially trying to give away $17 million from the rim fire and the same HUD money that we got for those resiliency centers. But they're having a hard time trying to find traction with businesses to actually take those loans. And it comes back to businesses making that capital risk investment. And one of the biggest things that I always hear them talk about is supply. So I've been working with Office of Research and Planning at the state, Natural Resources Department at the state, and a few other really key state organizations that understand natural resources and supply chain issues. And I think we're coming up with a solution, and we might even find funding to create that solution. And so I'll be excited to bring that to you once it starts to come together a little bit more. Finally, broadband. Now, if we're going to try to attract telecommuters, we're going to need reliable broadband. I have the data on how much percentage of our county has gigabit internet. I have the amount of how many have 100 megabytes per second. It's a key starting point for an actual employee office to have more than one computer connected to the internet. So really what I'm trying to do is spearhead and lead the efforts in our region. And I've done that through both that, if you remember the Central Sierra Broadband Conference, but then what led out of it were two key issues that came up, which was dig once policies, which essentially outlined to internet service providers or any of our utilities or municipalities, if you dig up a road, here's what our expectations are for conduit for future ISP usage, or, hey, Comcast, we're digging up this road. Why don't you put in your conduit while we're doing it? So this just really creates a process for internet service providers to really understand where is it that we want some infrastructure and how we expect it. But more importantly, it's not just our county. We need to broaden it up to the 5-county region so that if Comcast wants to invest however much money into a pipeline from, let's just say, Amador to Mariposa, they don't have to change their process over each county line. So I've been spearheading Zoom meetings with supervisors from each county to make sure that we're all kind of headed the same way. And finally with that, you brought up CARES Act funding. I put in an application for a $500,000 broadband roadmap from a regional standpoint on what does it mean for all of those processes to make sure it's easy and understandable, essentially, for internet service providers to put in projects. And so we'll see if that funding comes through. I will not be the person making the broadband plan. I won't even really be totally and that's not going to be my sole focus. It's just that I'm leading the effort. I'll try to be the funding mechanism. And hopefully our Central Sierra Consortium, which we have an executive director, will take the lead, as well as the other economic development directors from the other counties.
Hey, Cole, just based on that, I remember from the meeting, there was, I think it was like $100,000 plan to come up with a regionalized plan. Is that what you're talking about?
That's the $500,000. So essentially what came to be is we did conversations with California Emerging Tech Fund, the California Education Network, they're called CENIC, and then spoke to El Dorado County. And what transpired is that what we originally thought was a $75,000 plan for the county was actually, that was the EDA contribution for the county, and they matched it. So they did about $150,000 plan just for El Dorado County. And really one of the big differences I want to reiterate to your board about, especially like El Dorado and our Central Sierra roadmap, is that El Dorado put together a broadband plan that essentially allowed them to understand if they could afford and if it was worthwhile to implement a county-owned or a municipality-owned broadband utility. That is not what we're doing. We are creating a broadband roadmap of what we already have. We understand we have these assets. We understand we have these right-of-ways. We understand we have these internet service providers. So how do we simplify their lives in making those investments and making those capital investments so they can reduce their time getting through our processes and actually make some infrastructure changes, as well as priorities for each county. So in Tuolumne County, what are the priorities? Is it a certain neighborhood? Is it a certain communication and access for our first responders? What are those priorities? And so hopefully this $500,000 will be able to cover the entire Central Sierra as well as priorities for Tuolumne County.
Any other board questions? Before I go to public comment, I just want to clarify something that you said, Cole.
Yes.
And that was on the natural resource piece and having the conversations with some of these businesses, and they're concerned about the supply. And it's not that we don't have the supply.
Correct.
It's that, as with so many of our public lands counties, it's the process and getting through the NEPA process to free up and get some of that material off the landscape, as well as CEQA. And we'll be very excited to hear Ms. Peterson's item, because there are a lot of things that are coming together at a really perfect time. And I just want this board to know that a couple of these companies, Cole spoke of one, because I've been in a number of these meetings that was from out of state, and they could not have been more complimentary about the professional way that Cole has dealt with them and the information that he has provided. And they are looking at some tremendous investments in the western United States, and we are a top contender. And to a large degree, that is because of Cole's, again, the way he has presented, the way he has responded to getting them the information that they need, and then also their conversations with me about how we are bringing all of these pieces together. We're not just working one silo, but actually bringing a number of pieces together that will make this work in Tuolumne County. So I just want to, those are great calls to get, and thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board comment?
Yeah, just, Cole, you're awesome, man. I'm serious. What you've done for our local businesses here in this COVID in terms of helping them get their hands on money that they really needed to have to keep their businesses alive and through the shutdown, and help bring them back as we've opened up. Hopefully we won't have to shut back down again. But your initiative, your outgoing nature, you don't wait for them to come to you in many cases. And I want to tell you, I get a lot of phone calls, emails, sometimes just conversations I have with a business owner when I'm at their business, just complimenting you on the work you're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the thing that really strikes me is this information kind of backs up what those of us on the board have known anecdotally from speaking to constituents, is that some of the state and federal aid that has come in for businesses and for the unemployed has really had a positive impact. My concern is what is going to happen and if this continues on for the next 6 months or who knows how long. I've written to some of our state and federal representatives supporting essentially three things: allowing CARES Act funding to backfill local revenue losses is one element. The other that's very pertinent to this is that the federal government still continue to fund these small business guidance and loan resources and extend those benefits for a longer period of time. And then the most pressing matter that I hope those listening at home, or if there are any representatives listening, is we really need to extend the federal pandemic unemployment compensation fund, which is going to run out at the end of the month. And that's that extra $600 that people on unemployment have been getting to be able to make ends meet. And I've really seen a pretty significant drop off from people reaching out to me with problems getting their EDD paperwork through. So I've really seen a positive impact from those three elements in our community. And I hope that our representatives outside of the county can find a way to continue those.
So I have a couple questions and then a few, oh, that's great, a few comments. If you would, and I didn't want to cut you off earlier, but would you go to, I think it was slide 27, where you showed Tuolumne County PPP per day? Obviously how, this slide's, like you said, very telling because you got ahead of the game, you advise the businesses. My question is, do we know about what the amount of the loans were for this graph? Do we have any idea?
Yeah, this is the total. So remember so the total amount is 21, or it's the
150,000 or less?
Yes.
Or less for
correct.
2020. Okay.
Yes, correct. Excuse me.
Right.
So this is the 150 or less.
So you did a great job. What concerns me is that 40% of our businesses, it looks like, relied on that, possibly. And worst case scenario, 37%. So we did an amazing job, but there's something stirring in the future that if could decimate our small businesses. So again, amazing work, but it's a very telling story of what's to come. Because I don't know how many times as a private business owner you can continue to take out loans, because eventually those loans are going to be due.
So the only thing that I would note that's different, so the Paycheck Protection Program was so heavily utilized by all business types is because it was completely forgivable if you use it in the correct way.
Okay.
So if you used it, and I think it's a 60-40 split now, 60% of it went to payroll and 40% used for bills, it's forgivable. So you don't have to pay it back. If you use it incorrectly, it becomes a 1% loan. The difference is that economic injury disaster loan, the first one that we talked about a lot, that one is a loan. That one had interest rates and terms. So
which graph is that?
So we don't have that information.
Okay.
So the economic injury disaster loan, the SBA has not released any data on.
Okay.
They only have total.
Then that makes me feel a little better as long as people use it correctly.
Yeah, so this one is, when you look at this number, you're essentially looking at, I mean, terrible to say it, but free money.
Right.
This is money that the business owners technically do not have to pay back unless they use it in the
But if we
wrong
continue with
way.
the shutdown like Supervisor
Correct.
Campbell said, and we have to do it again, and it's not free money,
Exactly.
those are the numbers we could be looking at. So
Yes.
And then I just know this. I love that you fact checked. You got with a PhD. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, so if I don't know something, I always ask somebody who's smarter than me. So I really appreciate that about what you do. And then just, I think when we first hired you, I said, we might be looking for a rock star. I'm very cautious about ever giving somebody a title until they've earned it. But a year into this, you've really gone above and beyond my expectations. Some business owners, some people that I know and trust, they're very encouraged by what you've done. So although I don't want you to take the title as a rock star and stop doing things, but you've really shined. And I don't know how many businesses, like Supervisor Rutherford stated, have reached out to me, have emailed me saying, just being able to get in contact with you to get these pieces of information. It was the difference between being in April or missing it and having to float things. And so I just want to thank you for being proactive. Thank you for working with the City of Sonora, working with our local businesses. And again, the broadband thing is near and dear, I think, to everybody on this board. And I hope with COVID and with everything that's happened that it's going to hopefully open up the eyes to a lot of the legislators and just a lot. I think we're there. I think we just jumped 20 years into the future these last five months. So with that said, I'll stop rambling on, but good work. And again, thank you for data is everything. Once we get the numbers, then we can start assessing, start planning. And so I really like that. Now we have the data, we have a base to start moving forward. So thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I'd ask if there's any public comment.
Yes, hi, this is Marianne Wright from Cervini Saloon, and I just wanted to call in today to just thank you for Cole for helping the small businesses and helping us get through this process, and that I just think he's doing an awesome job, and thank you to anyone who was responsible for bringing him on board. He's so much better than, he's just done a great job, and I really can't say enough for how difficult this has been. And so he will take a phone call, he will email you right back, and anyway, I just want to thank everyone and hope that he stays on and continues to help us. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And thank you for that call, and appreciate that. Also was a City of Sonora business owner, and I know you've been
and Jamestown.
And Jamestown, yes. Thank you. She said Cervantes. Is there any other public comment?
Hello, this is Lori Lehman again. This has been a great board meeting. I just wanted to say, wow, I'm so impressed with Cole's presentation. The data is amazing to hear. He is doing just an amazing job, and we're so lucky to have him. When I'm looking at the PPE data, I just had one question. Nonprofits doesn't show up there, and I don't know if they just get absorbed into some other element of businesses, but I do know one nonprofit that did receive PPE very thankfully. And also then my other point would be is to learn that the Tuolumne County does not require business licenses, and the city I know does, and not necessarily for income, but you're kind of tying the hands of Cole and those that even came before him to not have that contact information. So I think that would be something you would look into seriously, and I know he mentioned that he was going to as well. So thank you, Cole, for an amazing presentation.
Can you answer the question on nonprofits?
Yeah, so she's correct. The nonprofits aren't actually in this presentation today because we are focusing on businesses. However, I directly assisted quite a few nonprofits, including chambers in Tuolumne County, and the PPP data does include some nonprofits. So if Lori or anyone else is interested in having that conversation about nonprofit and how they did within the PPP data realm for Tuolumne County, I'd be happy to have that conversation. It's not easy. It's just a removal and a couple clicks. So
Thank you. And then for clarification, this board has been talking about business licenses. I know we were really in a conversation before COVID hit, so it is something that this board is, I think, supports from just gathering information to make your job easier. Is there any other public comment?
Hey, Sherry, just one more. I know it was already on here, but slide 17. Again, thanking the volunteers. There's a whole bunch of them who Cole reached out to, or people reached out to Cole, and just publicly thank everybody. It shows just great community support for local businesses. So, thank you for your time for volunteering, people.
All right, this item was for presentation purposes, and so we really appreciate it. I think it was very informative, and keep up the good work. We need to take an 8-minute break, please. Let's try and be as quick as we can. We have staff that are waiting to do their items, and I know that they are anxious to get back to their jobs. So we will recess for 8 minutes.
Brag on my department and update you, first of all, before I read my memo to you. I just want to give you a quick update on where we're at and what's been happening in this past few months here. This week, We launched our social media platform, so we are making a presence out there. Entering into the 21st century, we're going to be on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so we're happy to do that. We launched yesterday, actually, so we'll send out links to the other county Facebook sites and make sure we get our message out there. We think it's important that we keep the public informed on what we do and that we are here. June 30th, we went fully operational with our pretrial program. We are one of 16 counties that are partnering with Judicial Council and local superior courts to establish pretrial programs that are validating risk assessment tools, establishing workflow processes, in preparation for possible implementation of SB 10. So we do that on a pretty limited budget, but being part of that program has helped us implement a number of improvements within our department. We've been able to adopt one of the best risk assessment tools out there, and we'll start the validation process on that. Seems to be working well. It's also paid for some software that allow us to do a lot of this work remotely. We've added in reminders to people released on pretrial and people that have pending court hearings, just like you get from the dentist's office. They get telephone robocalls or reminding them to make their court appearances. This has been a very effective practice in other jurisdictions, and we expect to see similar results here. We do have a high failure to appear rate in our county, so we're hoping to see some dramatic improvements there. We also have brought on 2 probation technicians that work directly with released inmates on pretrial status. They put on electronic monitoring bracelets, remind them of their court hearings too, and also work with them to just make sure that they have places to go, that they update their address and all of that. We've already had San Benito come out last week. Their assistant chief came and checked out our program just to see how a small county can do that on a limited budget. And so we're proud to do that. And we think that's part of the intent of the program, is to be a model to other small counties out there. Let's see, what else have we got going on? We have, just to update you, we started our juvenile offender camp program, which will add some additional revenue. We also, as you know, the county implemented furloughs, which we are doing department-wide. But able to make this work, we met with the Deputy Sheriff's Association and members of our department and their representatives in order to establish a process that allows us to do furloughs even with staff in the juvenile correctional facility without having to add overtime to the process. I will say that our staff were incredibly understanding and willing to work with us. It will be incredibly difficult to make this work effectively, given that we are stretched thin. But what we did is we had our deputy probation officers develop a calendar where they're going to all be filling in 3 weeks out of the year to cover shifts for juvenile correctional officers. So we're very appreciative to have such a high-functioning and cooperative, creative, flexible group of employees that were willing to do that. They've all been staying safe. They've all worked very hard through this COVID-19 crisis, and I'm impressed every day by the enthusiasm, their willingness to show up to work and work hard and just do the job and make sure it gets done. So I want to brag on them today, and that's my main goal for being here. And last thing I want to add is, as I've already sent you some emails, I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that we did get those contract amendments for Amador and Calaveras in place, and Mariposa, I think, will happen today. So that being said, I'll let you answer any questions you may have, or if you have any questions before I read the memo. Okay?
You look at me like I'm gonna have a question,
Okay.
but today it's about.
I'm surprised.
I'm not gonna hound you today. Today it's about what you guys do and supporting you guys. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Okay, so just to give you some background here, I am the 13th Chief Probation Officer in this county. This position was, this office of the Chief Probation Officer was created in 1905. It's my privilege and honor to serve in that capacity. And just to give you some background on Probation Services Week, July 19th through 25th, 2020 is a nationally recognized as the Pretrial Probation and Parole Supervision Week. This proclamation provides recognition to the nearly 100,000 criminal justice professionals throughout the United States who provide supervision and rehabilitation services to 6 million offenders on parole, probation, pretrial services throughout the United States. The state of California also recognizes this as Probation Services Week. There is an attached proclamation from Governor Newsom. In Tuolumne County, the Probation Department employs 47 dedicated professionals, which includes 33 peace officers. The probation staff work closely with victims of crime, justice-involved individuals, local law enforcement agencies, superior courts, educators, child protective agencies, and treatment professionals to promote research-based approaches that provide and promote public safety through positive behavior change. The current staff supervises 820 offenders, adult offenders, consisting of 572 felony offenders, 112 of which are realigned state offenders. We have 136 misdemeanor offenders. In addition, the pretrial staff currently supervises 67 defendants on release. In 1920, adult signed officers provided 259 pre-sentence reports, 252 supplemental or stipulated reports, 88 drug diversion reports, and 34 expungement investigations to the court. Additionally, during fiscal year 18-19, staff supervised 13,650 hours of work release, over 16,300 hours of community service work as alternatives to secure detention. Staff assigned to the juvenile services currently supervise 71 delinquent youth, and they received 212 law enforcement intake referrals the last year. During fiscal year 19-20, 130 reports with recommendations were supplied from the juvenile unit to the court. Staff assigned to the Mother Lode Regional Juvenile Detention Facility provide housing, education, and rehabilitative services to 14 youth per day during fiscal year 19-20, which included 49 unduplicated Tuolumne County youth. So it is the recommendation from me that the board adopt the resolution proclaiming July 19th through 25th as Probation Services Week in Tuolumne County. Thank you very much.
Are there any board comments? Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask if there's any public comment. Seeing none, I'd bring it back to the board.
Madam Chair, in great appreciation for the work that our probation services folks do day in, day out, week in, week out, 52 weeks a year. It is with a great deal of appreciation that I move that we adopt the resolution 6720 proclaiming July 19th through 25th, 2020 as Probation Services Week.
Yeah, and I'll second that motion with profound agreement with those sentiments and, a great appreciation for the role that probation serves in our community, getting folks back on the right track and becoming productive members of our society, which benefits everyone.
And I'll just say, being a probation officer in the past, you don't get paid a lot of money for a lot of work, a lot of drama. You're a social worker. You're a parent to these people. You're law enforcement. You're so many things. And I have a feeling with the way the criminal justice field is going that there's going to be more supervision on the streets than there is incarceration. So I think it's going to be an interesting time over the next 5-10 years to see where it all plays out. So I think you guys are going to become more and more critical in the days that are ahead. So Thank you for you and your staff, what you guys do.
Thank you.
Yep.
And in complete agreement with what my fellow supervisors have said, please carry our sentiments back to the ranks. With that, I'd ask, I have a motion by Supervisor Rutherford, a second was from Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor
Thank you very
Gray
much.
absent. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Will the clerk please read item 12?
Consideration of approving the Yosemite National Solutions Opportunity Area Shared Stewardship Supplemental Project Agreement for the Master Stewardship Agreement with the Stanislaus National Forest, authorizing the county administrator to sign all related documents and all future modifications. Please call now if you're interested in providing public comment at 209-533-6581.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Liz Peterson with the County Administrator's Office. I apologize for that very wordy agenda item. I'll hopefully be able to provide a little clarity on that. So just as a matter of some background, on December 19th in 2017, your board entered into the what at the time was a monumental master stewardship agreement with the Stanislaus National Forest. This has given the county the authority over the next 10 years with the opportunity to extend another 10 years in partnership with Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions, or YSS as they're more commonly known, and the Forest Service to complete restoration projects on the Stanislaus National Forest. Just again, as a matter of background, projects are laid out and completed through supplemental project agreements, or SPAs as we call them, which describe the specific location, treatments, and costs. On June 5th, 2018, your board approved the Forest and Watershed Resilience SPA, which includes multiple thinning, fuel reduction, and restoration projects, and that was primarily funded by a California Climate Investments grant from CAL FIRE, but there has since been additional funding that has been infused into that SPA. Those projects are ongoing, and we will give an update to your board soon about the status of those projects. But today, I am here requesting that your board approve the YSS Opportunity Area Shared Stewardship SPA. Because of the extraordinary collaboration and partnership between YSS, the county, and the Stanislaus National Forest, the Forest Service in the Washington office, the national office, has given $2 million to the Stanislaus National Forest to add to its efforts, the collaborative efforts, again, working with the county and YSS, of increasing the pace and scale of landscape treatments to improve community and forest resiliency through this shared stewardship. The Stanislaus National Forest then is granting $1.2 million of that funding to the county, to us, to obtain the surveys and analysis necessary to refine, develop, and implement forest treatments within the defined YSS opportunity area. And I put the map up here for your reference. It's also included in your board packet. YSS has worked tirelessly over a variety of, well, a lot of months with the Stanislaus National Forest staff to identify this YSS opportunity boundary, otherwise known as the Cerrel Project. And this boundary includes NEPA planning for approximately 117,000 acres. There's going to be more discussion on the Cerrel project with your board at a future meeting here soon. But the Cerrel project is out for public comment right now, public scoping, yeah, so it's a very exciting project that includes NEPA, as I mentioned, for 117,000 acres in this whole red area So the funds that we would get from the Washington office that the Stanislaus is granting to Tuolumne County would be used to conduct some botany surveys, some archaeological surveys, and then let me see if I can remember what it's called, the Transportation and Logging Systems Analysis. And what that is a hiring a consultant to do an analysis on all of the road options in the forest within these boundaries to look at what would be necessary to enhance roads, perhaps, to make logging operations successful, so that once NEPA is done on those acres, then we would be able to, then either the Forest Service or the county, perhaps through another SPA, would be able to sell timber harvests and then use those roads that have been enhanced, I suppose, to be able to, for logging trucks to be able to actually use the roads. So if that makes sense, sorry for my jumbled words there. Another interesting component of these surveys is that we would also be, so not only will these surveys then create thousands of acres of shovel-ready projects that then we can go and pursue additional funding for to do work on in this boundary area, but we'll also be able to use the LiDAR data that the county acquired using those CCI funds. And that will be a key component of the survey planning and analysis work done under this SPA, but then also future projects as well in this boundary. So that's the plan for this initial $1.2 million, is to really get this boundary into the acres within this boundary to a place that then we can have projects that are ready to go, that we can, either the county can do or the Forest Service can do, we can do mutually together, to treat this landscape, to make it more fire resilient, to make the landscape more resilient in general. So I am asking your board to approve the Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions Opportunity Area Shared Stewardship Supplemental Project Agreement for the Master Stewardship Agreement with the Stanislaus National Forest, and requesting that your board authorize the county administrator to sign all related documents, as well as all future modifications of the SPA.
Are there any questions or comments?
I got a question and a comment. Just jog my memory. YSS, is CSERC on the YSS?
They are.
Yes.
Mhm.
Cool. So they're on agreement with this. Good.
Yes, and so is our local Sierra Club chapter, as well as the Audubon Society, as well as lots of other interests.
Industry.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just putting it out there. So that's great.
Yeah,
So
and, yeah, John Buckley from the CSERC has been extremely helpful in helping to identify this boundary area, and very supportive of all of this work and getting these projects moving forward. Yeah.
and that's good because time is time. You look at the 108 corridor, you look at Long Barn, Miwok, Tweenheart, Strawberry, Cold Springs. And I grew up in Miwok, and I always rode my bike down to that river. And we all know if a fire took off from there, it's going to come up fast. So my question is, and I know this is very preliminary, would there be some attention to getting some of the work done on right up next close to the 108 corridor, and then working, I guess that'd be north? Have you heard of any ideas of prioritizing the way the work's done?
Yes. So as far as like where treatments will take place first, likely generally when the county looks at developing a project, to implement through the Master Stewardship Agreement, we work with YSS. The board signed that letter of understanding with YSS that said the board wouldn't put any project forward that YSS didn't give consensus on.
Right.
And so YSS has generally, the projects that they want to put consensus toward are projects related to community protection for wildfire, as well as projects that have value. Timber value, or, that's not a hard and fast, but that's generally been the discussion up to that point. So to your question, Supervisor, that would likely we would look at community protection as prioritized, yeah.
So thank you for answering that. I kind of knew that, but I just want to put it out there. And then just a comment, I want to thank Sherry and Carl and the prior board members for getting the system in place so we could be doing these projects and doing them in a quicker manner. So I'm lucky to be here with having that built in front of me. So thank you guys.
Is there any other board comment?
Yeah, just one comment in what appears in many cases to be an increasingly divisive community, sadly. This is an excellent example of what we can do when a community comes together. A lot of diverse interests, buried the hatchet several years ago, agreed to come together, worked tirelessly to come to agreement on how they could move forward and continue to work together. And it doesn't mean we always agree on everything, but we have been able to accomplish something that truly is monumental and is a landmark for other communities, other counties, other regions to follow and actually to aspire to. And this is just another example of how that YSS group, the county, all the Forest Service, people at different levels and different interests have come together. And hopefully we can continue to be that kind of a community.
So just a quick comment, because this really is monumental in so many respects. Boy, I'm trying to think of, it was probably a year ago, we were talking about a project called Motor M2K, which really took in the Stanislaus, the Sierra, and a portion of the forest to the north of us. And after 6 months of really heavy conversations, it became quite obvious that the other partners in those counties were not in the same place that we were in the Stanislaus. And so I have to really give a shout out to Forest Supervisor Kuiken, because he didn't give up on it. It would have been really easy at that point to walk away, but we knew that if we were going to really be able to move forward, we had to get a large landscape project NEPA analysis done. And they've done it. And so Forest Supervisor Kuiken, the YSS leadership across the spectrum have been so committed to getting this work done. And the county being a partner in this, this is why if we get those investments from companies that we need to utilize those biomass-type fuels, this is one of the reasons why they will invest in Tuolumne County, is because we are bringing all of the pieces and we are coordinating this effort from so many different perspectives. And that will help us on the SRA, because it's very difficult to get our fuels projects done with our fire safe councils. People don't want those materials chipped and left on their property. They want them removed. Having these kinds of companies that can deal with that material is going to be critical to our success there. So it's a spider web, and it is so interconnected. But this is a tremendous piece in us being able to move that forward. So again, I know that I am thanking all of the members of YSS for their continued dedication. I know this board will do likewise, because they spend a tremendous amount of time, energy, and effort in getting to this point. And I'll just say that it is certainly confirmation and recognition of the hard work for this $2 million to be coming to Tuolumne County in this way to move this forward. So with that, if there are no other questions, I'll ask if there's any public comment. I'll bring it back to the board.
Move on staff recommendation.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Rotifer, a second from Supervisor Kirk. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Thank you, Ms. Peterson, for your work on all this. Will the clerk please read item 13?
Consideration of approving Amendment 1 to Standard Agreement for Professional Services with Mark Thomas and Company Incorporated for services associated with the design of the bridge and roadway of Wards Ferry Road crossing Deer Creek Bridge Replacement Project in an amount not to exceed $763,777.41 for phases 1 and 2, and authorizing the chair to sign the agreement. For public comment, please call 209-533-6581.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Blossom Scott Himes, Supervising Engineer with the Department of Public Works. The Wards Ferry Road crossing Deer Creek Bridge has a current sufficiency rating of 28.6 and is considered structurally deficient due to the poor condition of the superstructure. In November 2016, the county was authorized to proceed with the preliminary engineering phase of the project. Due to the complexity of both the bridge and roadway design and the remote location, staff made the decision to hire a civil engineering consultant for this project. And in October of 2017, Mark Thomas and Company was selected to provide the necessary services. The Wards Ferry Road Crossing Deer Creek Bridge project was contracted in 2 phases. In Phase 1, Mark Thomas and their subconsultants performed topographic and boundary surveying, preliminary right-of-way engineering, preliminary geotechnical engineering, preliminary hydrologic and hydraulic analysis, and environmental assessments, bridge type selection, and preliminary design plans. Phase 2 will include the remainder of the environmental approval, completion of right-of-way engineering, completion of the PS&E for the project, and construction support. The project is currently budgeted in the fiscal year 2021 budget in the amount of $297,000, and the entire project is 100% funded through the Federal Highway Bridge Program. It is recommended that your board approve Amendment 1 to the Standard Agreement for Professional Services with Mark Thomas and Company for services associated with the design of the bridge and roadway for the Wards Ferry Road Crossing Deer Creek Bridge Replacement Project in an amount not to exceed $763,777.41 for Phases 1 and 2, and authorizing the chair to sign the agreement.
Are there any board questions? Seeing none, I'll ask if there is any public comment. There is no public comment. Bring it back to the board.
Madam Chair, I'll move on staff recommendation. I'll move on staff recommendation.
Don't read it again.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Campbell, a second from Supervisor Kirk. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Will the clerk please read item 14?
Consideration of adopting Resolution 6820, appointing the Director of Public Works as a designated representative to adopt plans, specifications, and working details and advise for bids for the 2017 and 2018 storm damage projects. Please call in with public comments to 209-533-6581.
Good morning again. In early 2017, the county was hit by a series of prolonged storm events, and at least 28 locations in the county were damaged, with the Q and Mill Road, Marsh's Flat Road, and Italian Bar sustaining the worst damage. Italian Bar Road, sites 1 through 5, has been complete. Site 6 we expect to be complete in the next couple of weeks. And Little Fuller Road and Rogue River Court will be the only remaining projects. Both are anticipated to go to construction in fall of 2020. Again, in 2018, heavy rains resulted in flash flooding, causing damage to at least 15 county-maintained roads, with Priest Coulterville Road, Marsh's Flat Road, Ferretti Road, and 5 Mile Creek Road sustaining the worst damage. Priest Coulterville Road, 3 sites out of 6, Marsh's Flat Road, 2 sites, and 5 Mile Creek Road are the only remaining projects. Priest Coulterville Road and 5 Mile Creek are anticipated to go to construction in 2020, while Marsh's Flat is anticipated to go to construction in 2021. In an effort to accelerate the bidding process and assure construction in 2020 for 4 of the 5 projects, staff is requesting delegating authority to the Director of Public Works to adopt plans, specifications, and working details, and advertise for bids for the remaining storm damage projects. Once the bids have been received, staff will bring the final contracts to your board for award. The projects are currently budgeted in the fiscal year 2021 storm project budgets. The 2017 storms are eligible at a reimbursement rate of 75% by FEMA, 18.75% by Cal OES, leaving a local match of 6.25% by the county. The 2018 storms are eligible to be reimbursed at the rate of 75% from Cal OES, leaving a local match of 25%. All of the projects are statutorily exempt from review under the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15269B-D, and categorically exempt from review pursuant to Section 15301. It is recommended that your board adopt a resolution appointing the Director of Public Works as the designated representative to adopt plans, specifications, and working details and advertise for bids for the 2017 and 2018 storm damage projects.
Are there any board questions?
Just a point of clarification, advertise for bids, but obviously not award bids.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We'll bring them back to your board for award.
Yeah, and I just have a statement about this. I remember a time about a month and a half after I got this job that seemed like half the roads in my district started washing away. And I remember the quick action of our Public Works Director and our road crews to repair a lot of that damage and replace some of the culverts that washed out. Q and Mill really stands out in my mind as a great success. And then, obviously the two roads you highlighted in my district, Italian Bar Road and Q and Mill were terribly damaged. And the quick response that we had from our Public Works Director. And so to me, this is an effort to, it took a lot of work to get there, a lot of weekend work, a lot of after hours work. And to me, this is an effort to streamline that process and get us to a resolution if these kind of issues come up again more quickly. So I'm very supportive of it.
Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments, I'll ask if there's any public comment. Seeing none, I'm going to bring this back to the board.
Yeah, I'll move that we adopt a resolution appointing the Public Works Director as the designated representative to adopt plan specifications and working details and advertise for bids for the 2017 and 2018 storm damage projects.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Campbell, a second from Supervisor Rotifer. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
ladies. Okay, will the clerk please read item 15?
As the Air Pollution Control District Board, public hearing to review, receive comments, and subsequently approve Resolution 6920 adopting proposed Rule 428 emission statement for submittal for the Environmental Protection Agency as one of several state implementation plans, requirements in meeting Section 110A of the Federal Clean Air Act for Tuolumne County's 8 hours ozone standard non-attainment designation. Please call in now for public comment to 209-533-6581.
All right. This is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. Staff report.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Bill Sandman, Deputy APCO. I'm here today to ask for the adoption of Rule 428 emission statements. The emission statement rule is mandated by EPA due to our non-attainment status for the 2015 Ozone National Ambient Air Quality Standard. This is the second of 3 SIP elements that are required to be adopted by your board pursuant to the Clean Air Act. A quick background, the county is non-attainment for the state and federal ozone standards. Transport of ozone from the upwind urban areas are the main reason for this designation, and ozone is the only pollutant that Tuolumne County is non-attainment for. Proposed Rule 428 does one main thing. It requires those stationary sources that emit nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds greater than 25 tons per year to submit with their annual reports a signature certifying that the information submitted is accurate to the best of their knowledge. That's about it for this rule. 3 sources are subject to the rule. The 2 SPI sawmills, Sonora Division and Chinese Camp and Pacific Ultra Power. And these sources are already well aware of this rule. They have no problems with it, and technically they're already complying. I will say that this is probably the shortest and least onerous rule that's come out of EPA or the Clean Air Act in a long time. So with that, the Air District recommends your board approve the resolution adopting Rule 428.
Are there any board questions? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll ask if there's any public comment. Seeing no public comment, I will close the public hearing. Bring it back to the board for action.
I'll move on staff recommendation.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Rotifer, a second from Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, will the clerk please read our next item? Reports.
Reports.
Okay. I will start with County Council.
Sure. Over the last several weeks, we have been dealing with several juvenile dependency appellate cases, so we have many briefs pending. Your board probably knows we dealt with a lot of the fire and parcel tax preparation. Yes, sorry, and we'll continue to work on the tax issues. Have some upcoming meetings with attorneys from some of the districts, so that's something to look forward to. And then, as usual, we've been spending a lot of time advising public health and Office of Emergency Services on all COVID-related legal issues. Thank you.
Mr. Earhart.
Thank you. Nothing to report.
Supervisor Rotifer.
Sure, there we go. Mostly, I've been dealing, obviously, with COVID and a lot of interaction with our business community. I can tell you that the compliance rate is much higher than it was a couple of weeks ago, voluntarily so. And hopefully we will continue working in that regard, especially with our new division in public health. Beyond that, I've been monitoring all of our COVID briefing calls. And of course, Cole and I were on the last biweekly COVID call, which Wednesday webinar, which went exceedingly well. And again, I can't emphasize enough from my communications with our local business owners and employees, by the way, the incredible impact that Cole's presence and his efforts to help facilitate them getting funding and other resources necessary to either stay in business, recover back into business, deal with unemployment, the whole gamut has had. And that's, probably the most consumptive part of my efforts for the last 2 weeks is just trying to make sure that people have what they need to have. So with that, I'm done.
Supervisor Campbell.
So in addition to my regularly scheduled meetings and responsibilities, a week and a half ago I hosted the New Normal series that focused on the pathway to reopening schools and what that would entail. Obviously, we don't have all the answers yet, but it's been very gratifying to work with educators in our community and the superintendent of schools, Kathy Parker, who are all working overtime trying to get kids back in school, get kids learning again in the safest way possible given the environment that's going on right now. That series, that particular episode, I guess you'd call it, if we're calling it like a TV series, had over 590 participants, and then subsequently the meeting was viewed over 1,000 times streaming online. So there's obviously a great deal of public concern about this, and so just there are many educators and people within the community working the problem and trying to find a solution for families and for children. I attended this weekend the Phoenix Lake Property Owners Association, and we discussed many of the issues related to that area. And over the past week, I've been advocating with as I said, I alluded to earlier, I've been advocating with some of our state and federal representatives about the CARES Act and about extending some of the unemployment benefits that I have actually seen firsthand, the benefits that those have had, as well as the loan assistance that some of our small businesses have been gaining. So trying to advocate really hard for those because they've had a real impact here, which I think is very clear from the presentation Cole gave earlier. Those are the highlights. Thank you very much.
Supervisor Kirk.
All right. It's caught off guard because we haven't done reports in a while. Other than regular meetings, I was at a Motherlode job training board meeting yesterday, Zoomed in. And for anybody listening, if you're unemployed and you need help paying utilities, they got some grant money. So if you need help, they got grant money. Their number is 588-1150. Again, that's for Motherlode job training. They have grant money to help pay for your utilities if you can prove that you're unemployed right now. I believe those are the details. 588-1150, or you can go to mljt.org. But get a hold of them. They got some resources. Also, schools. I did sit on that meeting. The Supervisor Campbell was speaking about. I know a lot of people in my district, lots of schools in my district, people are concerned. I am actually in discussions with a teacher who has looked at the state guidelines, local guidelines, and she's developing what she believes might be a way to get all kids back in school. Her main concern is obviously parents, single parents who don't have the option to homeschool or don't have the option to be home with their kids. So I'm looking that over with this individual, and then I'm going to present to Kathy Parker, Superintendent of Schools, just trying to come up with solutions, be a part of the solution bank there. And then one last thing that's really been encouraging. I wrote a little article about it, but the folks in Ponderosa Hills, if a fire goes off, you can now evacuate through Mount Provo Road. It was undrivable for years, and I told you guys when I got in office I was going to figure out a way to get that road working. I can think and I can figure out all I want, but if I don't have the support of the community, it's not happening, and I did get the support. Just want to thank, again, Josh from retired CAL FIRE Chief to get the ball rolling on it. We got it graded. Thank Frontier Communications. They did not have to, but they spent, it could be over $100,000 or more, moving that utility line from the middle of the road and putting it up in a pole so that we could come through and grade it. And SMCI, the owner, Doug Benton, volunteered a water tender to come out there, compact the road. And so it's drivable, but the future of that road is not going to last unless we get rock. So I have had some homeowners reach out, and they're going to come up with a way to hopefully fund the rock. But I'm not going to give all the information out right now, but it looks like I got some businesses and some folks that want to see this road permanently fixed. And so I'm hoping that by this fall, that road will be completed and last through the winter and winters to come. So it's a big deal for that community, but again, it's just an idea unless people are willing to come together and make it happen. So thank you guys who made that happen. And that is it for my report.
All right. And aside from my normal committees, there's one thing I'd like to report on, and that was a meeting that we had on July 13th regarding the LATM funds, which was the emergency money that we had from the state of California to take down dead and dying hazardous trees. That meeting was held with the 10 high hazard counties, and I am very happy to report because the money that Tuolumne County was allocated, we were so efficient, we got all of our work done, and we left a significant amount of money on the table, and we could not get permission to work outside of the scope that was originally defined. And the governor did provide some additional guidance, and so we will have a year to spend those additional funds in Tuolumne County. And a big piece of that guidance is now we can coordinate and collaborate with the special districts, including school districts, in looking at any hazardous trees that they may still have that they need to get down. So Ms. Peterson and I are working on that, and want to thank the governor and his staff for finding a way for counties to expend those funds where we still have a need to do that. And so with that, we will recess the Board of Supervisors meeting until our 1:30 appointment.
Maureen Frank, County Administrator's Office. And with me, my partner in crime is on the phone, and that's Terry Cox, just so the audience knows. Today before you, there are 3 items on your agenda they're all interconnected or interrelated to Community Development Block Grant. The item before you that I want to talk about right now was a CDBG program income application submission. HCD, which oversees the Community Development Block Grant Program, has made a number of changes over the last couple of years. Recently, it has issued new requirements for the use of program income. And program income is money that the county gets from previous either loans that we've made or from either housing or businesses. HCD required grantees, so required the counties or cities who to expend program income prior to requesting grant funds from an awarded grant. The result in program income supplanting was that we were supplanting the award funds. So we had to spend, HCD required us to spend those funds first from our program income before we could really get at the grant funds. This system created accounting nightmares for both us and the state. In June, the state authorized jurisdictions to apply for program income on hand and anticipated for CDBG eligible activities, so we wouldn't have to go through this nightmare. Eligible activities are the same for those in the regular grant applications for CDBG. These included housing, public services, public works, community facilities, and economic development. In May, Terry Cox and I met with staff from the state regarding the use of program income, which is this item, and also your next item, COVID-19 funding. There are limitations regarding eligible activities, timing, and expenditure caps related to the 2 funding sources. Also, the COVID-19 money also triggered what's called duplication of benefits issues for multiple funding sources for activity. For this, we had limited amount of money that we have available, and it's $203,000 for COVID-19 funding, and we had $145,000 for program income funding for the next couple of on hand for us, plus the anticipated payments from our loans that we have of $70,000 over this next year. So it wasn't enough money for us to issue any new activities, but enough for us to really look at the existing programs that the county currently provided funding to and try to augment those services. Based on the advice we got from the state, to avoid anything that would trigger a duplication of benefits problems, the use of COVID-19 funding for housing stabilization related to the pandemic, and the use of program income funds for food bank equipment were the allocations the state indicated that would be acceptable for them as far as an approved application. So with that, for the program income, the food bank operated by ATCA had previously advised the county of the need for additional capital equipment. This included a new refrigerator box truck, and which by the end of this current year will be outdated and will not be allowed to be used on out on the roads because of emission standards. The other need that they had was a stationary generator. And we saw this be very problematic for ATCA last year in regards to the PG&E outages that they experienced, that we all experienced. So with that, then ATCA is also receiving donations from other sources to help pay for their generators. So there is a gap or a shortfall of $30,000. Given the program income available and anticipated and that we have and that we anticipate, there's enough to cover the refrigerator box truck at $150,000 and a stationary generator for $30,000. The remainder of that funds then goes to administration of the grant for $13,500. The food bank, as you well know, serves up to 2,700 persons a year, all of low income. And since the COVID-19 issue has arose, those numbers keep climbing each month as more and more residents of ours find themselves in need of their services. So before you today, staff is recommending that your board approve the program income application and accompanying resolution for food bank equipment in the amount not to exceed $213,500, and then authorize the submission to the state. And again, this is a public hearing.
Okay, are there any board questions before I open the public hearing? Seeing no questions at this time, I will open the public hearing. Is there any public comment on this item? No. Okay. Seeing no public comment, we are going to close the public hearing and bring this back to the board. And I'm looking for action.
I'll move on this item just to say thank you for getting work done on this. We had other plans before COVID-19 broke out to help try and fund this that we had to change pretty quickly. So this has been a long time coming, and with that, I'll move that we let's see, what am I doing here? I'll move on staff recommendation for this item. Make it easy.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Campbell, a second from Supervisor Rotifer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Will the clerk please read our second 1:30 appointment?
Public hearing to consider submission of a CDBG CV1 application to the State Department of Housing and Community Development for housing stabilization.
Ms. Frank.
Yes, on March 27th, 2020, as you're well aware, Congress passed the Corona Aid Relief and Economic Security, or the CARES Act, in response to impacts from COVID-19. Money was then passed through down to HCD, and they published a notice of funding for Community Development Block Grant Aid, which is CDBG CV1. Eligible cities and counties were asked to then submit applications based on this NOFA, and they had a set formula in which they dictated how much each county was allocated, and for Tuolumne County it was $203,229. Again, eligible activities paid for must meet one of the two national objectives that HCD has. The first one is a benefit to low-income households or persons, and the second one is to meet urgency community development needs. In addition, eligible activities must be used directly to prevent, prepare for, or respond to COVID-19 and must meet all CDBG requirements as provided for by HCD. HCD also has significantly restricted the types of activities that are eligible under the CDBG CARES Act funding. They sometimes don't make it easy on us. Because of the range of activities was very narrow for this funding, and the total amount available wasn't real significant, staff again contacted HCD, our staff up there, and worked with them as far as possible projects that they would think that would be successful and that they would approve. Their requirements, their additional requirements include funding must be expended within 1 year. All activities must have a direct tie to mitigation of the effects of the pandemic. They must be able to document capacity and carry out the activities within the available time frame, and ability to demonstrate readiness to begin the services right away. The state preferred also that grantees avoid combining funding sources that would trigger, as I mentioned earlier, the duplication of benefits problems. So as we just discussed, the state, with that, we just included the food bank. The activities discussed with the state included the food bank as we just mentioned, housing stabilization for those needing assistance because of the pandemic, Meals on Wheels, and a small business loan assistance program. On that basis, the food bank equipment purchase was moved to CDBG program income, the item that you just approved. The Meals on Wheels operator did not have the capacity to do the duplication of benefit tracking, so they declined to participate. And then in regards to small business loans, the county used to have a program, but it's been inactive for the past 4 years. We would need to take a number of steps to get a small business loan program that fit the regulations under CDBG. We would need to have the state approve our rules and regulations. We'd have to appoint a new committee. We'd have to procure a loan packager, do a marketing plan, and have that approved by the state. We'd have to have a loan underwriter, and then we'd have to start issuing loans and creating jobs all within the 1 year. So Terry and I thought that was unrealistic at this point in time to be able to carry out and to do a small business loan program. We'd also, with a limited amount of money, we would only be able to serve 5 people, maybe at most. And if we were to do something, a public service, we could serve over 100 people or more. So we turned to ATCA, and we looked at, they've been operating the housing stabilization program for the county since 2012. They have documented recent capacity and are ready to implement the program immediately. Their activity does have direct tie to the pandemic, and they have been serving our residents for the past year and helping them with rent stabilization, education programs, and trying to keep them in the homes that they're currently in. The proposed use of funding is for rental subsidies for those that are unemployed, underemployed, or furloughed due to the virus. It'll also pay for hotel vouchers for COVID-19 patients not sick enough to be hospitalized, and others that must self-isolate and have nowhere to go. So our recommendation is to apply for these funds in the amount of $198,000 for housing stabilization, and then to administer a program is $14,229. The activities under the housing stabilization will assist approximately 160 county residents for the term of the contract. So before you today, staff is recommending that you approve the CDBG CV1 application and accompanying resolution for housing stabilization in the amount of $203,229, and authorize its submission to the state.
Are there any board questions? Okay, seeing none, I am going to open the public hearing. Is there any public comment? There is no public comment at this time. We are going to close the public hearing and bring this back to the board.
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the CDBG CV1 application and accompanying resolution for housing stabilization in the amount of $203,229 and authorize its submission to the state.
Second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Campbell, a second from Supervisor Rotifer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Will the clerk please read our third 1:30 appointment?
Consideration of approving amendment number 11 to the CDBG subrecipient agreement with the Amador Tuolumne Community Action Agency for housing stabilization and food bank equipment.
Mo.
Yes. Again, building on the 2 items that your board just heard, as you're aware, HCD issued 2 grant applications, one for program income and one for response for COVID. In doing so and improving those awards and those grant applications to programs and services that are provided by ACA, we now have to go back and look at the contract and amend it for ACA. The attached amendment number 11 to ACA's subrecipient agreement incorporates the $189,000 for housing stabilization, and it approves $213,500 for the food bank equipment from the CDBG program. The funding for these activities is subject to state approval. The amendment is also subject to state funding and has been reviewed by County Council. The original ACA subrecipient agreement and subsequent amendments have been listed in your board packet. And with that, staff is recommending that your board approve the attached amendment number 11 to the subrecipient agreement for ACA in the amount not to exceed $369,000 and authorize the county administrator to sign.
Are there any board questions? Is there any public comment? There is no public comment. Bring this back to the board.
Madam Chair, I move to approve Amendment 11 of the CDBG subrecipient agreement with the Amador-Tuolumne County Action Agency for Housing Stabilization and Food Bank Equipment.
Looking for a second? I have a motion from Supervisor Rotifer, a second from Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Gray absent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And with that, that concludes our board meeting for today. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.